Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. This is episode 140. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined, as always, by the stylin' Chris Raygun, who just got his COVID test. He just got a COVID test. When he talked to me earlier today, I thought he was telling me he was getting his COVID vaccine.
No.
So I'm illiterate, apparently. But Chris, how are you today?
I'm doing all right. Did I write vaccine? I didn't write vaccine, did I? Okay.
No, you certainly didn't.
Just making sure I'm not going insane on my end. But yeah, no, I'm doing all right. It's I'm in New York right now. So that's been a thing.
Yeah.
That's been happening.
How's it going?
It's good. It's good.
Yeah.
I've already had more pizza in the last I think 3 days than I have in the last several months. So that's nice, and I feel great too. Like I feel heavy, you know, like dense.
Sure,
but I wouldn't have it any other way.
You're,
quite honestly,
you're full of dough and mozzarella.
It's wonderful. I can't believe how much I miss this.
Oh yeah, well, welcome back and.
Yeah.
Good to see you, of course. And Dustin, we have you here with us again this week. Dustin Furman, executive producer of Last Stand Media. How's life in Western Pennsylvania and Butler, Pennsylvania? Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, things are good. I'm starting to, do you guys get a thing where in like mid-March, I'm just like, feels like, obviously everyone's day feels the same because of COVID, but when especially when it's cold, I'm not leaving the house. And so it's like, I have no concept of what day it is, what time it is, and I think I'm dying, honestly. I think I'm losing my mind, or I just don't know anymore.
I was kind of tailor-made for this situation, so I don't feel like my life's changed that much. Yeah, the weather's getting nicer, so I'm outside walking around more with the dog and dicking around the house and the yard, but yeah, it does kind of blur into each other. March is it's a very vanilla month. Because you're kind of getting out of the winter, you're waiting for the spring. You know, I was thinking, when I was walking, I was literally thinking to myself yesterday, I'm like, what is that saying? Oh yeah, April showers bring May flowers. So we're just waiting for something to happen right now, you know? We're waiting for the April showers to bring May flowers, as it were.
Yeah, never been a big fan of March, personally.
No, it just kind of exists.
The thing about March is you might get a warm day or two, but it's just a tease because it's going to be fucking terrible the next week after. That's what happened to me. It was like 60 degrees 2 days ago, and now, no good.
Now look at you. It's also, I was talking to Micah about this, it's hard, you know, you can tell it's this time of year because it doesn't retain any heat. Like, it's really nice during the day, but then it just gets really cold at night because it just, the ground is like emanating freezing, and it is a strange time, but nonetheless, good to see you both, and good to see you all out there, our wonderful audience. Sacred Symbols, our weekly PlayStation podcast, supported on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. We appreciate your support over there. By the way, I was looking at the numbers today, and this continues to be true. We have more subscribers on Patreon at the $5 level, just the $5 level, not $5 up or $5, but just the $5 level than every other level combined. And I feel like people should be looking at that level even more. It's chock full of value right now because Sacred Symbols Plus, Defining Duke Ultimate Knockback is on there as well. And the knockback video, of course, that we're doing. And then your ability to submit questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas and all of that. Now, some of those are available below at those tiers if you want to join us at $1 or $2. But just wanted to reiterate, thanks to everyone that supports us. And especially thank you to everyone that's at that $5 tier and the kind words that you are submitting based on that. We are very proud of that $5 tier, and we would love to have you on Patreon.
Yeah. The $5 tier is definitely out. It could be argued it's an irresponsible amount of value.
Yeah.
That $5 level.
Yeah, corporately it probably is. I mean, I probably could have raised prices, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to do that.
No.
Seems, I'm all about trying to generate revenue with volume. As opposed to asking people for too much, we just want to have as many people on board at a lower price as possible and then distribute the wealth evenly in a very communistic style situation we have. But thank you so much for supporting us. And if you don't, listen to us on YouTube, listen to us on free feeds, leave us nice reviews, comment on the videos, leave a thumbs up, whatever. Dustin and I were just really pat myself on the back right now, but we were just talking about how awesome the podcast is doing on YouTube. And you'll notice, by the way, things are happening back here now in the background. We're not anywhere near being done, but I got a shelf here.
Did you hang your things up finally, or?
No, certainly not. I've hung 2 things up in the house so far.
Right.
A Resistance Retribution poster I've been hanging on to for years. It's above my bed in my bedroom. Now, that was Micah's idea, and it's actually really cool because it's that famous lapsed picture of like the Eiffel Tower being built. So it's like the Eiffel Tower. It's people can go look at it. It's like a famous shot where it's like nothing, and then it's like the base, and then it grows, or whatever, and then so it's that shot, and then the final shot is the Chimera destroying it, and it's like a really cool little poster. So I hung that up, and I hung something in my kitchen, but that's it. But I have this shelf. I didn't put it together. Micah did. I don't know how to do it, but there are things on here. There's a little, Monokuma, which is also on Dustin's shirt right now. We got our little slime. That's Tinker Knight right there from Shovel Knight. It's Dr. Wily.
You gotta get your shit in order, man. You gotta get. How long have you been in that house and you hung 2 things up?
I bought this. I moved in June 15th of 2020. So we're moving at a rapid and brisk pace.
Yeah.
But I wanted to let everyone know that those things are happening as well. Yeah, we'll get to it. Now things are happening. So now we're really moving. I'm sure that shelf will look very different next week. I'm sure it won't actually. All right, let me open up the document here. I haven't even looked at it. Oh, merch. So it's funny. So Dustin's been mostly dealing with this. We're dealing with a guy named Rob, American Print on Demand. Nice guy. He actually emailed me. I have to email him back because I haven't been talking to him at all. But I don't think he'll mind that I'm going to read this part of his email verbatim because I really am so honored by this.
He's a listener of the show.
He said that. I mean, he said that in email, which is very cool. And by the way, he plugged you too, Dustin, saying how good of a person you were to work with. But here's what he said, and I wanted to thank in part. Here's what Rob said. He said, quote, "It's been fun watching the rocket ship of a launch the store had. The conversion we've seen with the Last Stand shop is a testament to the devoted fan base you've built over the years." End quote. So our merch is doing great. All thanks to you, laststandmedia.shop. All made to order, made in America, and shipped to you pretty much anywhere in the world. So they're going, like, the first batch is kind of getting off the printing presses now and being shipped out, and Dustin sent me some pictures. They look great. So very excited about that. So thank you for that. And Abraxia 2, of course, our game is out as well. Chris, someone wanted to take you to task. Actually, multiple people wrote in about this, and I was shocked by it. Although, in hindsight, maybe I should have stood up at the time and said something. Matthew Armelli speaks for all of them. He says, "What the hell, Colin? Make Chris call his mother back right now and tell her that he loves her before hanging up. I don't know what eldritch hole Chris clawed his way out of with his tiny little soft hands, but this is ridiculous. I was in complete disbelief when you and Dustin let this unimaginable disrespect transpire." It's very good writing. "What is this absolute heresy you're letting fester on this podcast? Anytime your mother calls and you answer it to tell her that you're busy, you better, at the very least, tell her that you love her before hanging up. You're on thin ice, Chris, and summer's coming, buddy." Whoa. Chris, what do you think of that? So he's referencing in the last week's episode, your mom called you during the show. We obviously couldn't accommodate her at that time, but
no, of course,
you just kind of whisked her away as if she was a telemarketer. What do you think of that?
Nah, I mean, I don't know. We just, the words "I love you" are not often said in my family. Like, they're said like whenever people are leaving or whatever the hell. But it's very, I don't know. It's, we have, in my immediate family, we have a very, I don't want to say casual because that's not really the way it goes, but it's very kind of, friendly. You know, it's very much just like, "Hey, listen, I can't talk right now. I got to go by." You know, it's like very much like, and she's done this to me multiple times as well. So like, I don't feel too bad about it. But obviously, my mom's amazing, and she's hilarious.
I found it interesting, Chris, because you are very close to your family. Mm-hmm. So it's not like you came from, like you were born in a barn or something like that, or like that. And a lot of people don't also get along with their families. We kind of take that for granted, right? Because we get along with ours. Yeah. So you're not in those situations, and so it just goes to show you that it's different strokes for different folks, is it not? Is it not? I think it is. So. Yeah. I normally would be like, "Yeah, I love you, bye," or whatever the fuck. But like, I don't know. I wasn't thinking because I was in recording mode, quite honestly. Right. But you were confused, and I think you did a nice job with it. But nonetheless, was surprised. We got quite a bit of feedback about this, and I wanted to acknowledge it. Yeah,
that's good. That means most people are kind-hearted, I guess. You know,
so you know all the stuff that's going on with. I promise it's not political. I'm telling you because I think I just wanted to tell a story. You know all the stuff going on with Andrew Cuomo and the governor of New York right now, how he's being accused of. So I was watching his press conference. I don't usually watch this stuff, but I was watching his press conference, and he was going. I don't know if you guys saw this particular part where he's saying like there are hundreds of pictures of him kissing people and stuff like that, and he. In my mind, I was like, I'm not a huge Cuomo fan. I wasn't my family's not a huge fan of his dad either. He used to be the governor of New York. But when he was explaining, because he's Italian, he was saying like, I kiss everyone when I say hello to them. And, we hug and we kiss and stuff. And part of me was like, regardless of what he's being accused of, which is heinous, part of me was like, yeah, I guess my family does that too. Like I kiss my uncle on the cheek when I see him, and, like my cousins and, it's a, very Italian thing, so we all kind of meet and greet in different ways, but I think it's just based on what you're used to. And for some reason, we Italians are just making out with everyone. I don't know, open face making out.
That is something that I've noticed around a lot of Italian families. It's like, it's just how that goes. I guess.
Yeah, everyone's just kissing each other. Just constantly kissing each other.
I expect to kiss.
Well,
next time.
Sure, that can be arranged. All right, Seth Bain wrote in with something. I thought this was. This is very deep, and I'm surprised that he's talking about it here. This requires some sort of analysis. He says, "Hey, CNC, Dustin's also here." He says, "My friend and I both had dreams about sleeping with each other's girlfriends within the same week. Does this make us emotional swingers? Should we tell our girlfriends about this? Any and all advice is welcome." So this is interesting. This is interesting on many levels because. Yeah. All right, you have a dream about sleeping. People can't control the dreams they have about it. I'm sure it means something, but people have dreams about sleeping with people all the time. It's not a huge deal. But your friend's girlfriend, and then he had the same dream with your girlfriend. So that's another layer of deep. And then the third layer of deep is, should you tell your girlfriends? I don't know, Chris. What do you think?
No. What? Definitely not. Definitely don't mention this to anyone. The fact that you even wrote this into us. Attached to
your name.
Presumably to your name is bad enough. Like, hopefully, I hope to God this is like a pseudonym for you, because like this is not information that you want out in the wild, discoverable. Like and by the way, like it's not like it really means all that much. It's just you're not going to be able to explain that away. Like you're not going to be able to casually and logically explain any part of this,
right?
So it's best to just. You just gotta pretend like none of this happened. If it happens again, then maybe like consult like a psychic or something. But
sure,
because that would be weird if it happened again and both of you like synchronize the same dream again. That's cosmic shit that I have no, Yeah,
we can't understand that level of universal fabric.
Yeah, no,
that's required for that sort of anomaly. Dustin, what do you think about this situation?
I just don't think that if I had that kind of dream, that I would tell my friend that. I don't think I would really tell anybody that, because like, let's just, you tell your friend, it's like, hey, I had a dream about sleeping with your girlfriend. That's basically saying, hey, my subconscious brain wants to have sex with your lover.
That definitely is what it means.
That's exactly what it means.
I'm surprised that it even it's multiple layers here. First of all, they told each other. And then second, that they wrote in to this show about it, and they're even considering taking it another step by telling the ladies involved. And I just don't know. You're going to open up a lot of questions. And
I think he wants to. I'm starting to wonder if Seth wants to, because I'm starting to wonder if like what they really want to do is swing.
Yeah, that's what it sounds
cool.
like.
I mean, that's cool if you want to do, but it seems because you're asking, are you guys emotional swingers? Well, no. It's a dream. I've had dreams about all sorts of shit. I don't really feel like you're responsible for that. It's not fucking Minority Report or something, but it's interesting that you then, because what's interesting about it is he had the dream. So then he had to make a decision about telling someone, like Chris was saying, right?
Right.
He told his friend. But then the weirder cosmic thing to Chris's point is that his friend then also had the same dream in the inverse, also made the decision to tell him.
Yeah.
And I don't know what your intent is here, Seth, but I think I do. I think I know what your intent is.
Yeah.
And that's fine, to each his own.
Yeah, like if your goal is to just see if this is possible at the risk of possibly destroying two relationships, then I guess like, hey man, if that's the value that you've weighed on this whole situation, then go ahead and do it. And by all means, let us know how that goes.
Please do.
Like, I would be beyond curious to see like what the fallout of this is. Yeah. You know, because there's a chance, man, that this works out perfectly. And hey man, you know how many years you got on this planet? Maybe 70 to 100, and that's a good estimate. Why not? Go ahead, give it a shot.
Yeah, it's interesting because, to your point, it's like when an asteroid, like when NASA says like there's a 1 in 10,000 chance that this asteroid is going to hit the Earth in 2042 or whatever, and it's because it has to pass through what they call the keyhole, which is like this very specific place in space where it is just perturbed in certain ways, and that's what he's got to hit. Yeah, he's got to hit that keyhole. Pardon the pun. There's no sexual innuendo there. He's got to thread the needle.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
And it's going to be a difficult thing for you to do. You know? So
tread lightly.
You, Seth. You have something to add, Dustin? You look like you might have something to add.
No, I mean I have this problem that I can't help but overanalyze. I'm just thinking like maybe he mentioned the dream, and so the friend's subconscious is like, screw you. You slept, your subconscious slept with my lady. Now my subconscious is going to get back. Maybe there's a revenge situation going on.
It's like Black Mirror.
Yeah. Well, we don't know.
Kind of a Black Mirror situation.
We don't know the order of operation. This could have been simultaneous too. It could have been like, hey man, I had a dream. It could have been like, hey, I had a dream about your girlfriend. It's like, yo, wild. Me too. It's like, wait, what was the dream? And it's like, oh, this was the dream. It's like, what? Me too. What the hell? Like, we don't know the specifics of this story. I don't really think they're important, really. I'm curious as to how this is going to play out. So please give us.
I'm wondering,
give us
what if they have such a psychic connection that, let's say Seth was having sex with his girlfriend while his friend was dreaming of having sex with his girlfriend. Then they discover, when they get really into the meat, that he's like, so what, you know, they were like, oh, you know, it was like missionary or something like that. And it's like, well, that's what I was doing. In other words, it was like a body double situation.
Oh, yeah. So it was like the Assassin's Creed Animus type deal.
Right.
Where he's
right,
like,
with the Matrix or something.
Like
sure.
Yeah. That's a whole nother.
Right. Let's move on.
Please.
Let's get into some video game news. Now, we're not going to get into the news yet, but there are a few things we should touch on here. I actually wanted to start with this Elden Ring stuff because, and Dustin, you're here, so we should really take advantage of that. You're, for some reason, very excited about this game. I understand why. I just, in some ways, I don't understand why, because I don't really know what the hell it is. But Elden Ring was, some of this footage leaked, apparently. I mean, it looks real. It doesn't look very high quality, but it looks real. I still can't tell what it is, and we still don't have anything. I mean, people were kind of hypothesizing that it was going to be soon. What are your thoughts on this saga?
So, to my understanding, this is an internal trailer that was never meant to be for the public. And so I haven't watched it just because it's like, seriously, looks like it was recorded with like a Motorola Razr from 2006. Like, I don't know. It almost feels like blatantly bad quality on purpose. Like, it's very weird. I saw the first 5 seconds. Like, I was scrolling Twitter in the morning. I was like, you know, what's this? And then I moved on. But I still think it seems like all the rumors are pointing that we're going to get an actual reveal trailer sometime this month. Those rumors are still out and about despite this leak. But yeah, it's very exciting. I'm curious about what their strategy. Everything points to a 2021 release at the time. So
yeah, definitely not going to happen now, I would assume. But isn't there a lot of hype building for this Microsoft event?
Yeah,
Maddie's been talking about it. I think.
There's like rumblings. There's like rumblings of like something possibly being pretty big, but like, you know, who the hell knows? This is like rumors of rumors at this point. You know, it's so early on and so little is known that it's possible we see some Elden Ring stuff. I don't know why we would see it at the Microsoft event.
They debuted the trailer.
Oh yeah, that's true. I forgot.
They might have a marketing deal, but we don't know.
Yeah, it seems like they'd probably do. if the debut happened there, but I don't know. It seems everything's backed up now because of COVID. So who knows what the plan was? I agree with you. I thought that it was funny because, you know, when you see secret or like, I'm sorry, when you see, well, yeah, secret stuff, whether it's real or whether it's fake, right? And it's always horrible quality to convince you that it's real or fake. And like you would see those Nintendo like write-ups that happen, like the internal documents in there or whatever. I remember when Gears of War Redux for PlayStation 3, I think it was, leaked, and, you know, in quotes and all of that. And so you kind of have to, that's all baked into the cake. It's interesting. Like people are like, well, we have to make it. So I watched the footage and I really couldn't even tell quite what it was, but it was like, you're right. It seemed to me like the person was definitely knowledgeable that he was going to get in trouble if whoever it was, and they like very quickly or something took some video, or also maybe made it worse so that there was no identifying marks about who it might be. Remember when the Wii U, do you guys remember when the Wii U leaked? This was back in the NeoGAF days, and someone found in the reflection of the screen what they thought was like the front of a Ubisoft dev studio team. Like there was a reflection in it, and then someone like went on Google Maps or something and found where the Wii U apparently leaked from.
Yeah, you gotta be.
People are nuts.
You gotta be careful about that shit, because like that shit, it's amazing. Like I remember when the Xbox 360 did their first like major dashboard refresh, some people were like leaking screenshots of it, but like what they didn't realize was that the main menu had like a little Xbox logo in the corner and like ripples on the ground as like part of the graphics design. But apparently those ripples signified was like a barcode kind of, so they could read like and know exactly what console sent it and like what exactly like.
Interesting. Yeah,
and they all just got completely nuked, and it was pretty good.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I mean, it's the same way how artists often put text or something in like one gradient off from the sky or something in the corner of a piece of art, and you won't even see it, and that's how they find people that steal their stuff.
Yeah, it's watermarks. It's important.
Definitely. So, we'll keep an eye out for Elden Ring, especially with Dustin's finger on the pulse. Chris, for you, rumors of Death Stranded Extended Edition. These rumors are pretty consistent, and the rumor is that they're done. This seems believable to me, and I feel like this is actually what was being teased by Phil Spencer on his shelf. I do think there was something to that. Maybe not, but do you want more Death Stranded?
I don't know. Like I Death Stranding is a game that I really, really loved, and I don't know if I'm gonna go through it again.
I'm calling it Death Stranded, by the way. Death Stranding. I don't know why I'm calling it that.
No, that's fine. But I loved Death Stranding like very, very dearly. I think it's like one of the best games I think I've ever played, because it's just so strange and so unique and just so cool, and I'm glad it got made. I don't know if I'll go through it again, because it was like, even as much as I enjoyed it, I don't think it needed. Like I don't know what the extended edition could possibly be. Like more deliveries. Like I don't know if I want more of those. You know what I mean? I feel like the game was already kind of getting to the point where it was like, this is a bit long. Like this doesn't need to be as long as it is. I like it and I appreciate it, but it could stand to be cut a little bit. So I don't know if an extended edition interests me so much as the interesting idea of Phil Spencer possibly teasing this as like, yeah, Death Stranding is going to be on Xbox, which that would be pretty wild, because that's something that I wouldn't have expected, even though it is on PC. So if that's the case, that's really cool, because I think that game deserves to be as spread out as possible, and I think anybody who hasn't experienced it really should at least give it a shot. And the fact that an entire potential new user base of people will have that experience is pretty cool. But I don't know if I'm necessarily itching for more Death Stranding per se, so much as I'm interested in just seeing what Kojima is going to do next. You know,
it will be weird because there are so many things that would say that that's not even possible.
Yeah,
mostly that Sony published the game and owns the IP, and it's running on PlayStation's engine in Decima. But I feel like there's more to this relationship, because not only of the 505 games publishing the PC version and Sony opting not to, but just because they must have made serious concessions with Kojima to get him. And the deal, as people will remember, was like a fire sale. It happened really quickly after he left Konami. So they probably were there were probably a lot of eager people trying to lock him down. And so you would imagine that this would be a game where it would be possible simply because by virtue of Kojima being involved and maybe getting some different things out of them, including maybe you fund the game up front. Maybe we do use your engine and your technology and we have the right to do with what we want with the game later. And I think it would be a really cool thing to see, just because that would break open the possibility that it could happen maybe with more second party games. Quantic Dreams games obviously are already on PC, because you see those games go to Xbox as well. And
Days Gone, stuff like that. Yeah, it'd be wild.
Dustin.
Yes.
Did you see, and did you both see, the BAFTA Game Awards nominations that went out? BAFTA, of course, a really well respected, up there with DICE Awards, I would say, in terms of like industry awards that are meaningful. I was thinking before about how these awards don't really mean anything for us, but they're really important to attract talent. And people don't really pay attention to what wins the Game Awards, but they do internally pay attention to what wins DICE Awards and BAFTAs. So I wanted to just bring up that Sony PlayStation, exclusive games dominate the BAFTA nominations. I think a third of the categories or so have a PlayStation game in them, including The Last of Us Part 2 with 13 nominations. Best game of the year, Animal Crossing, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, Half-Life Alyx, Miles Morales, and The Last of Us Part 2. And they have an award, obviously, because it's a British award show and British award series for British game. Dreams is nominated for that, along with Sackboy, A Big Adventure. And then in animation, Doom Eternal's in there, but Final Fantasy VII Remake is in there. And then Miles Morales and Last of Us Part 2 are also in there. Some Xbox stuff as well with Ori and the Will of the Wisps. And then Artistic Achievement. This is an interesting one, mostly because Cyberpunk 2077 is in there. I think it would be pretty controversial if that one. But then Dreams is in there. Mm-hmm. Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, Half-Life Alyx, and The Last of Us Part 2. So people can go look at the award nominations. But a lot of PlayStation games in there.
It's pretty crazy.
Dustin, do you care about the BAFTAs?
No, I'm looking at them now, and I mean, the Cyberpunk thing, it'll be, I hope it does. I mean, I don't know. I'm looking at the Artistic Achievement one now, and it's like, yeah, that game is gorgeous on PC. It very well may deserve to win that award. So it just, to me, that would be silly if people were upset about that, but I think you're right in that they will be if it does win.
Yeah, it would be very interesting, just based on the tenor of the industry right now. Another interesting piece of just passing news, Takashi Mochizuki at Bloomberg in Japan notes that PlayStation 5 will likely open up its storage capabilities this summer via firmware. So, if you're filling up that hard drive really quickly, which, as we noted, I think Chris noted last week, Call of Duty is almost a terabyte now, I think.
Yeah.
With all of its updates, it can't even really fit on PS5. There's getting to that point.
There was a story recently, like I think in the last week or two, where like Call of Duty Warzone or whatever the hell, the most recent Call of Duty wouldn't even fit on a PS4 in general, like, or something like that. Like the base SKU for the PS4 just can't do it.
It's incredible.
It's ridiculous.
It's pretty bold, especially games should be getting smaller now, even the big AAA games, because of the way the SSD reads things, I think, right? So
yeah, because of the way it streams data.
They don't need to replicate assets and stuff like that. So wanted to throw that out there. Bloomberg also notes that, and I'm sick of talking about this topic already, but Harry Potter, Hogwarts Legacy, the Avalanche game that's coming out in some controversy right now, apparently allowing for transgender characters in the game. This isn't a huge surprise. I doubt this has anything to do with the controversy, actually, but Chris, what do you think about this idea of including trans characters? I mean, I know that this was a thing in with Cyberpunk as well, which makes a lot of sense with gender fluidity and the entire idea of Cyberpunk. But I feel like this is just, I have no problem with it, but I just don't understand why this is a talking point.
Like it's on the back of the box as like a selling point. It's as it seems like they're trying to make it into a selling point, which is a little weird. Like I would just be like, hey, this has it should just be normal, It shouldn't, like, I mean, The Last of Us and Cyberpunk didn't have, like, as far as I know, maybe they did, maybe I just missed it, but, like, they didn't really make, like, a big deal out of the fact that there were trans characters in it, right?
No, as usual, it was the audience that made a much bigger deal than the game, which did it much more in passing. In fact, I think you could pretty easily even, I don't know if you would miss it, but I don't want to say anymore. Actually, I don't want to spoil the game. I forgot not everyone has played The Last of Us Part 2 yet. You're fucking stupid if you haven't. So last year, I bought my very first house, and part of the excruciating process of purchasing your own home is, well, finding affordable home insurance. There are literally so many choices that it can make your head spin, and it's easy to cop out and go with the easiest choice, which is exactly what I did. But alas, if I knew about Gabi, I probably could have made a far more financially wise choice and have more greenbacks in my pocket as a result. Gabi is an insurance website that gives you apples to apples comparisons of the rates different insurance providers offer, not only for your home, but for your car too. But as many of you know, I don't drive, so home insurance it is. I went to gabi.com/sacred. That's gabi.com/SACRED. Took a few moments to put in some basic information, and voila. The website quickly showed me a quote from a rival to my current insurance company that would charge me some $150 less per year. It's actually kind of amazing, and I was impressed with the relative seamlessness of it all, especially because they're dealing with the biggest insurance companies around. Your Progressives, Liberty Mutuals, Allstates, and the like. But what's even more amazing is that the average Gabi customer saves a staggering $961 a year on their home and car insurance simply by using their service. And listen, it really was easy, and I really did realize, damn, I'm kind of just throwing money away into the ether for no discernible reason. Gabi, thankfully, is here to help ameliorate that problem, and it can do so for you too. I'm just grateful I learned my lesson in year 1 of homeownership as opposed to, say, year 10. Learn from my mistake by ensuring you get the best possible home and auto insurance rates by heading to gabi.com/sacred. It's free to use, there's absolutely no obligation to buy anything or switch your insurance, and at the very least, you'll be better educated on your options, just like I was after literally 3 minutes of using the site. You're probably overpaying for car and home insurance, my friends. See how much Gabi can save you by going to gabi.com/sacred. That's gabi.com/sacred. Again, save an average of $961 a year on home and car insurance by going to gabi.com/sacred. Dustin.
Yes.
What do you make of this whole saga? It seems like it's kind of wrapping up, although I think it might kick up because I was reading today HBO and HBO Max are saying that they have like a bunch of stuff lined up with J.K. Rowling or Rowling. I've been told that I'm saying her name wrong. So I feel like this is just going to be in perpetual situation. I just don't know why this is such a flashpoint for people. I was actually I like the YouTuber ContraPoints. She's a transgender political commentator, and she does like these really high quality videos. And I was watching her J.K. Rowling video today, which is like an hour and a half long, and I still don't know that I feel like it's a lot of this is kind of like overreaction or reading between the lines of things that people aren't really saying or meaning, and then it's being projected onto the game and onto a project that's somewhat innocent from all of this as well. And then this thing that I feel like would actually be much more powerful if it was just there as an afterthought, as opposed to making it something, would be much more impactful, because then normal people or even people with what you might call bigoted or closed-minded views would see that and be like, oh, it's just here. It's just an option. We're not even going to make a big deal out of it. This is the way it is, So that's kind of where my mind is at. But what do you think of Hogwarts, the Hogwarts Legacy situation right now?
Yeah, I feel like this is a big story just because of any kind of social related thing with this game is going to be a story because it being related to J.K. Rowling at the moment. So I don't know. It's one of those things where I'm in agreement that it kind of just feels like a non-story, because I'm guessing from here on out that character creators are going to have transgender options, and I think that's a good thing, because you're creating a character to role play. You should be able to have as many options as you want. So it is still newer, so as far as giving people an option to do this, but it seems pretty singled out in this instance because they know that people will click it because this game has been in the headlines for a bunch of reasons that's, for the most part, unrelated to the game. I mean, sure, there's the story that we talked about last week with the designer that has the YouTube channel, but for the most part, this game has been in the headlines for things that aren't even really related to it.
Yeah, it's also one of these things where it feels like things just get attention just because they're new and not because they're really controversial, where it's kind of like the whole, we kind of accept no shirt, no shoes, no service, as like a premise. So like we just kind of understand that, but then like a mask is suddenly like infringing on people's rights, and then people flip the fuck out. Where it's like, if they had required a mask for the last 50 years, like you wouldn't have, like you wouldn't care. Like it would just be part of it,
Yeah, that's a fair point.
And I just feel like this is kind of another one of those things where it's like they might be talking about it to make I don't know. I don't know who's talking about this and like for what purpose, or like whether or not this is like a marketing thing to just get the game out to people's attention, or if it's just to kind of preemptively kind of get ahead of the like One Angry Gamers of the world, like those websites that are just like insane. But
dude, I just speaking to that website, by the way, it wasn't recently, but maybe within the last year, I clicked on a link that I saw on Twitter to that site, and it's fucking horrible. I actually didn't realize how bad it was. I thought it was like this right-wing reactionary thing. I didn't really think twice about it, but it's
wildly unhinged. Like I remember I read one thing where there was like I think Celeste was promoting like it was like something about Celeste, how there's like a trans flag in it, and so it was like,
oh, that's right.
It was just some crazy shit, like some wild conspiracy level stuff, and I love that site for like entirely opposite reasons to
as a parody.
Almost. It's like reading Cracked, but like everything is real. You know what I mean? Like
definitely. It's like I love that satire site, the Babylon Bee, and they have another Twitter account that's not Babylon Bee, which is real stuff that you would think would be on the Babylon.
Or like reading stuff on like hard drive or something, and it's like, This is wild that this is just a real person.
Chris, didn't you get put on some kind of list?
Yeah.
For One Angry Game, I remember that happening and thinking it was awesome.
Yeah. He was like updating the list, and Chris was on it. I don't think I'm on it. I don't know. What did you did something? I don't know what it was, but
I think somebody, I can't remember. Somebody on Twitter was like, would you? Somebody was grilling me. They were like, I bet you'd find it too controversial to say Black Lives Matter or something. And then I just tweeted, no, Black Lives Matter, whatever. And then they put me on some list of.
Oh yeah, because I think the thing was like if anyone even said it, and then so people were baiting him or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, it's back to the topic at hand about the trans characters though. I don't mean to reduce a trans person's existence in this way, but in terms of video games, it's very simple to do. So it's obvious to do because you're not going into the psychological gender dysphoria or the real life social implications or all the shit that comes along with it that people have to deal with when they come out as trans. In the game, you're basically just saying like, maybe we take a male character and allow you to have like one of the female voices, or have the male clothes on the female
it's just
model or whatever. Like it's, in other words, it's not that hard. It's not a big deal, it's just not.
It's literally just asset adjustments, and that's literally it. It's not a big deal.
And if it makes people feel more welcome, that's cool.
It's a non-story, really.
Yeah, I agree. That's why we just talked about it for 25 minutes. All right. And finally, it has nothing to do with PlayStation, but this is an interesting industry story I just wanted to point people towards if they just want to. This story is fucking crazy. Between Nacon, the publisher, and Frogwares, the developer, and the game The Sinking City, which just came out specifically on PC, although the game was stripped off of PSN and other things. There's like this basically, if people want to go read about it, the developer and the publisher are like at each other's throats over this game. And the publisher is the developer is basically claiming that the publisher has no right to bring the game to Steam, and actually reverse engineered like an earlier copy that they have illegal access to. And they have this website where they prove apparently like where all of the things are stolen. It's just wild saga. So if people want to go read about it, just look up Nacon, CON, and Frogwares, and you'll find it. It's very weird and fascinating business story. And then finally, PS4 8.50 beta invites are going out. So if you still give a shit about PS4 firmware and you are in that ecosystem, you might get your beta invite soon. And finally, before we get into what we're playing, Jennifer Luviano wrote into us on Patreon. She says, "Hey, Colin and Chris from Until Dawn." Of course, Dustin is still here as well. If you could make one thing illegal, what would it be? If you could make one thing illegal, what would it be?
Oh, man,
Dustin, do you have an answer for us?
You
didn't think I was going to call on you first, did you?
I wasn't expected to be called on first. No.
Yeah.
I mean, trying to think of
paper straws.
Oh, that is a good one.
I hate those, man. Oh,
God.
God.
I would rather get any drink that I'm having, if I had the choice between intravenous, like an IV bag and a paper straw, I would pick the bag. I would pick the needle in the vein, because a paper straw is so unfathomably worthless an item. It just feels like eventually, like if you wait too long, you're just drinking glue. You're drinking like this paper mache. It's fucking terrible. The straw rips right where like the straw goes through the cup with the 4 little plastic pins going through it, and then it just becomes this weird soggy mess. It doesn't help anybody. Like, this isn't helping people. It's not helping sea animals either. I would wager.
No, it's definitely not helping. It's
they
not
hate
doing
it too.
anything.
Because they're thinking like, oh man, I miss this straw.
Well, do you remember this is just a random thing, but Chris and I used to sometimes go to this diner in Santa Monica, and one time Chris and I went, I brought my own straw because I was so sick of getting paper straws, and I would have to time it where it's like, I'm not ready to drink this quite yet, and because once you put the straw in, you're on the clock. And I agree with you, it's such a fucking stupid thing. Plastic straws are meaningless. Who cares? I'm sorry. Like, who cares? Like, don't we have bigger things to worry about with the environment than plastic straws?
Look, I get that plastic in the ocean is probably like the biggest, like, because it actually is, like, I think I read, so I could be wrong, I'm not a scientist, but I read that is like the biggest problem, where like it's just like air pollution and all this other shit is like that's also a big problem. But the fact that most of our oxygen does come from like algae in the sea and shit, it's not ideal that we're plasticking up our ocean. But paper straws are really bad. Like, they're worse, I think.
I just think my whole point is, because you're right, there are like artificial islands in the Pacific Ocean where the jet streams like collide.
It's real bad. Yeah, it's
plastic
real bad.
Bag islands. But my whole thing is with straws is like, come on, man. Like, there are plastic things that are, first of all, we recycle prodigiously in many parts of the world now. And second of all, it's like, sometimes things are just it's convenient. It's like styrofoam. I hate to say it, but styrofoam is really bad for the environment. And you've noticed that it's not gone away, because there are some things that you just can't do without styrofoam. It still comes in every fucking package you buy, and styrofoam peanuts and Chick-fil-A cups.
I just find it insulting. Just don't give me the straw. Don't give me a straw at all. Like, if you're going to give me a paper straw, don't give me a straw at all. Like, I'll figure it out. I'll drink it like I drink everything else out of a fucking cup, like an adult human being who's capable of doing such a thing. I'll get my own metal, rubber, mixed straw, whatever the hell, and I'll bring that with me. I'll do what I need to do to avoid a paper straw. But if you're going to offer a straw, it's plastic or nothing. Don't give me the fucking paper straw. I'm done with it.
Might as well just throw the drink in my face.
Yeah, you might as well shoot me where I stand.
Dustin, what should be illegal? Hit me with something here.
So
or you have something to add?
No, I was gonna, for my illegal thing. Initially, I was thinking like, what's really frustrated me lately, and I was gonna say people on Twitter that are so quick to tweet about shows that just came out either while they're airing or the day of. Then I want to just take it a step further and just let's make WandaVision illegal. Period. I know people are enjoying it. I'm tired of hearing about it. WandaVision, it's gone. You know what? Marvel, illegal.
That would be great. I would love that. Just because we can maybe get some new movies.
Yes. We've had enough Marvel. Enough. It's illegal now, and I don't care if you're enjoying it. I enjoyed it at one point. It's done now. Especially WandaVision, double illegal. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I mean, it could be they could cancel each other out, and it could just be legal then.
Shit.
At that point. But I mean, it's simple. It's mustard. I mean, you just make mustard illegal, and
I agree.
It was trending the other day on Twitter, which I noticed because people were talking about what they put on hot dogs, and it's like, come on, man. I'm sick of seeing this word. I'm sick of hearing about this catastrophic condiment. Doesn't serve any purpose. Anyway, let's get into what we're playing. Dustin, we'll start with you.
Sure. So I'm playing the free PlayStation Plus game that we're going to talk about in the news, but it's called Maquette, and it's from Annapurna is the publisher. The developer is Graceful Decay, which I actually don't know if this is their debut outing. Is this their first game?
I think so. I can look while you talk.
But so this game is pretty interesting in that it's all about like perspective. In fact, I was trying to figure out how to even explain how it plays. It's all about how it's like there's like a diorama in the middle of the play area, the map or whatever you want to call it. And so that's like a mini version of the world that you're in. And so when you interact and change things in the diorama, it changes in the larger world. And so you're like moving different things to get to different places and stuff like that. So pretty interesting idea for a puzzle game. And so I've been enjoying that aspect. There's a love story that's kind of told over top of it, that the voice acting is not so hot. And also I'm just not really enjoying that aspect of it at all, but it's there. And the other disappointing thing is that it just simply does not run very well on PlayStation 5. It has the same weird issue as Bugsnax, where it's just there doesn't seem to be any reason why this wouldn't run at a consistent frame rate. But the biggest thing that I wanted to mention, I wanted to see what you guys thought about this, is that while I was playing this game, I broke it 2 to 3 times. I think it was maybe 3 times where I broke the game and I had to reload the save because I made it so the puzzle was unwinnable.
Interesting. And there was no way to do that in game, like no way to reset it.
Well, you just have to reload and it autosaves. The autosaves are really good, so I never lost progress. But I was thinking about it and I'm like, this is really bad, because from here on, there were moments where I'm like, okay, am I an idiot or did I break the game? And I can never trust the game.
Right.
Like, I'm positive there are ways to break games like Portal or The Witness, but I never broke it in my encounter. I never talked to people during normal play. So I always had a good trust with the game that it was me, not the game. And so the fact that I broke it twice during my play, I'm like, this is not good. This game has broken my trust that I do not know whose fault it is. So just as a warning out there, everybody, for this game.
That's interesting. I was also reading, I don't know where I read it, that there are like a lot of spelling errors in the game.
Really?
Too. Yeah.
That's true in Cyberpunk as well.
Yeah, and it's almost more excusable with Cyberpunk because they're Polish. The studio that made this game is in San Francisco. Maybe not the most literate place in the United States, certainly, but not illiterate. But yeah, I noticed that it's their first game as far as I can tell from looking, and Sony seems to be securing some of these stopgap games. I mean, I think Young Horses with Bugsnax was a bigger get for them, but Maquette is the only PS5 offering this month. So I don't know. I'm not going to play it, but we'll see how it. I think it did pretty well with reviews, so we'll see if people like it. Chris says here you're playing Demon Souls.
Yeah, so I'm going through Demon Souls. I brought my so the stuff that I brought to New York is obviously not the stuff that I packed to come here is obviously not going to be getting here for like a week or two, or a week and some days. So I made sure to bring my PS5, which by the way took an entire suitcase.
I bet. I mean, I bet it did.
Just ridiculous. But I have it, and I was just thinking about like what to play. Is like what haven't I really jumped into, and I figured, I'll jump back into Demon Souls while I don't have anything else to play, while I don't have any of my other machines to distract me, while I don't have my PC to play like 4K 60 like modern like 3080 powered games. I figured like I'll do Demon Souls, and I'm doing it, but my 4K TV isn't here, so I'm playing it on like a 2010 HD TV, and it's like it's hard. it's hard to, because like so much of that game is like, specifically Demon Souls PS5, so much of the value in that game I think is just how fucking gorgeous it is, and so I'm having a bit of a rough time focusing because I'm just, oh man, this looks rough on old TVs, and it's like, oh man. But I've gotten further in it than I did when I first tried it out, so I'm just looking forward to getting through it. I still feel like I'm just not good at these games, but I'm gonna give it a solid college try, as they say.
Sure. Sure.
But I like it. It's good.
Good. I feel like Demon Souls is just going to continue to be attractive to people too, because there's just nothing to play. Nothing to play. No offense, but there's nothing really to play. And I'm kind of I remarked on it last week on the show. I just go to the PlayStation store. I'm like, Jesus Christ, there really isn't anything coming out. It's kind of what I wanted. I mean, people had said this to me on Twitter. It's true. It's exactly what I asked for. So I guess be careful what you ask for, just because I was, like I said, it's like sometimes you need that jump start. You want to play some of the old things, get them out of the way, but then you need that new game jump start. And I'm missing that new game jump start right now. But all right, so I've been playing 3 games, 3 very different games. One of them I can't believe I even started playing again. And I'm actually really excited to talk about it because it is shocking what they've done to this game. So I'll leave that one for last. Sparklight is one game that I'm playing. This is a game that was recommended to me by the audience. It's by a studio called Merge Games. And it's kind of like a roguelike, randomly generated game, almost like a Dark Cloud or something, or an Azure Dreams, where you're going in and out of the world and seeing how long you can survive. Then you get out, you buy your upgrades, you go back in. So nothing too crazy there. But what's interesting about it is that it's kind of plays like a Zelda game, like an old Zelda game. And it's really cute. I don't think it's great. I don't think it explains things very well. And it seems pretty limited once you figure out the bosses and stuff. But it's cool. I like the game a lot. I'm glad to play it. I'm glad to continue to play it. I've also gone back on my Vita and started replaying SteamWorld Dig, which I never beat. And I've always wanted to play the sequel, which is supposed to be much superior, but I feel like a poser jumping into the sequel without having first beaten the original. So for people that don't know, SteamWorld Dig is kind of like some mixture of, it's like a digging game, but also kind of like a Metroidvania. And there's like a currency system, and actually multiple currency systems, and an equipment system, and some interesting characters and permanence in the world. Like when you dig something, it's dug forever. It's pretty cool. So I'm playing that on Vita. It came out way back in 2014 on Vita. It was actually, as people might remember, a 3DS game first. It came out in 2013. And then the game that I have gone back to that I'm eager to talk to you guys about is Generation Zero. Right. And now this game came out in March of 2019, and I played it when it came out. And Chris and I, people might remember that Chris, I destroyed this game when it came out. It was horrible.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it.
I played it at your place in your living room just to give it, because you were talking about it and you were like, this is the worst shit. And I was like, it can't be that bad. It can't be. And I played it, and it really was. It really was not good. Whatever the hell I played back then. So I'm really curious as to what the hell is new about this.
It's very weird. So for people that don't know, I'll just frame it this way. Generation Zero comes from Avalanche Studios, but Avalanche has kind of not the same Avalanche that's doing Hogwarts Legacy. This is like the real Avalanche. And they've split into 3 teams, as people might recall. So like Expansive Worlds is one of those teams, and then Avalanche, which does Just Cause, like Avalanche itself. And then one of the teams is Systemic Reaction. They're the ones that did this game. And Generation Zero takes place in 1989. It takes place in Sweden. It's like a post-apocalyptic game. It's like full of robots, and it's really strange and weird. And when I played it, it was like this it was like this empty, voidless, boring, generic shooter with no point, no purpose. The mechanics were bad. The enemies were sterile. It didn't really make any sense. And I kind of just deleted it. I'm like, I'm not playing this again. And then for some reason, I was just scrolling through my games, and that game popped out. And I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm just going to download Generation Zero and try again. And when I did, I was shocked, because it's still not great by any stretch of the imagination, but they are still updating this game almost every month. And there is a huge, I don't want to say huge, but a substantial enough player base that they're continuing to release updates for this game, including 2 DLC expansions. And I had no idea that this was happening. So I went back into the game, and I don't know if people remember when I told the story about how I went early in the game, I went and like searched this peninsula, and there was like nothing on it. And in the middle of the peninsula, there was like this cabin. And so I was like, I'll go to the cabin. You couldn't even go in the cabin, right? And so I went back to this place in the game, and it's totally different. Like now there's like there's like a new building there, like, and there are dead bodies and things to find, and the robots attack you there. And I'm like, they're upgrading this game. And so I went to the website, and they have this huge patch list. And it seems I'm kind of puzzled by it, because I'm like, what's the purpose of this game? Are you guys trying to experiment with modular, updatable single player games? Are you messing with your engine, because it's built on Apex, which is the engine they use for everything? I don't know what caused them to continue to support it, but they are. And so I give them some credit for that. And the game is still, I don't know that I'd necessarily recommend it, but I'm intrigued by it, because I'm like, what the hell is going on with this game? Like, I haven't met anyone in the game. There's no voice acting, but there's like all these letters and weird shit you find and stuff. And I'm like, I'm going to keep playing Generation Zero. So there it is. I couldn't believe that I went back to it.
The redemption story.
Yeah. Very interesting. I had no idea.
Yeah.
That was happening with Generation Zero. So do I recommend you check it out? Not necessarily, but you can go read about it and see if it's for you. I bought it when it came out and I paid $60 for it, by the way, because it sounded great. But we can never buy games based on that.
No.
All right, boys, there's quite a bit of news to get through this week. None of it's huge news, but there are things for us to discuss. And what I wanted to start with this week was Sony's kind of surprising deluge of PSVR announcements. Not PSVR 2 announcements, which we talked about last week, PSVR. So here's number one.
Mm-hmm.
On the heels of Sony's head nod announcement of PlayStation's VR successor, the so-called PSVR 2, the official PlayStation blog has announced 6 upcoming games for the existing PSVR, all of which will be coming out by the end of this year. Perhaps the biggest game of the bunch is Doom 3 VR Edition, a VR-enabled version of the classic 2004 id Software-developed shooter. It comes to PSVR on March 29th with all DLC included. Second is cover-based FPS Fract, which launches this summer on PSVR. What's interesting about this game is that it comes from dev team In Dreams, which was one of the biggest developers in PlayStation 3's long-dead online space PlayStation Home. When I saw that name, I was like, In Dreams, the PlayStation Home dudes? And it's them. So that's their game. It looks pretty cool. And then next up is Shell Games' I Expect You to Die 2, The Spy and the Liar, the sequel to the 2016 original. It also launches on PSVR later this year. Then there's survival game Embrace, The Primal Wilderness, which also comes to PSVR later this year via the studio's 17-bit, known for the 2013 Xbox Live Arcade game Skulls of the Shogun. That came to PS4, I think, later. And 2015's space shooter Galaxy. People might remember Galaxy as being like one of those very early PS4 indie games, like the indie darling games. So-called MMO JRPG Zenith from developer Ramen VR is likewise coming to PSVR later this year. This game had already been revealed for rival VR units. The final game comes in the form of co-op shooter After the Fall from Vertigo Games. Vertigo Games is the Embracer Group-owned team behind one of PSVR's biggest hits, the 2016 FPS Arizona Sunshine. And while After the Fall was revealed several years ago, it has fallen off the PSVR radar. The cross-platform closed beta is ongoing with a yet unrevealed release date for the final game. While we don't know yet about what the headset will look like itself when it comes to PSVR 2, controller patents keep getting filed while these new games are announced, as noted by gamesindustry.biz, the website. Among them is a patent for what is essentially the ability to swap everyday items in the real world into the game as a controller or peripheral. I don't know if you guys saw this, that it's making the rounds as a banana.
Yeah.
Because in the schematics, Sony basically replaces whatever the controller would be with a banana, which you can then actually even put buttons onto and press them. It's very weird. You guys got to go look at the patents. But these 6 PSVR games came out of nowhere, and I wanted to, instead of talking about them individually, we can talk about any of the games we want that stick out. But I was wondering if we could make some sort of pact on this show right now, where maybe we need to start giving a little bit more attention to PSVR in a more active way, because I really believe that we should play what we want to play. I think that's true. I don't ever want to force people to play games they don't want to play that are working for me. But we're just ignoring this platform kind of, and there's definitely games on it that we would want to play if we just played them. Yeah. So I'm wondering, could we put a more concerted effort into trying to cover PSVR this year, Chris?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I think mine's on its way, so that's good.
But you still don't have a camera.
I have a camera here, actually.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah,
so
I'll be able
adapter.
Oh, that's right.
I just got mine like a week or two ago.
Oh, cool.
Never ends. There's always something.
Yep.
But no, yeah, I mean, there's stuff on PSVR that I wanted to play. I think Moss was great. Like when I played through Moss, I really
that was the last
Moss.
one I played, I think.
Yeah. That was probably the last I think objectively standout one. But I think we should make a concerted effort to play more stuff on PSVR. At the same time, I don't think it's necessarily our fault that we haven't been. I think just the platform just needs to be a little bit more enticing, and the fact that these are the first new games that we've heard of from PSVR in like a pretty long time. Let's be real. Like every week we go through the MPD group and we go through like the biggest sales on PlayStation, and every time we go to VR, it's always the same games. Like it's there's overlap with normal PlayStation titles too, where like, you know, Call of Duty's always up there, but there's definitely more variation there than there is in the VR space, because there's just so little in the VR space to play with. And I think we might have mentioned this kind of recently in an episode, where it's like they got to start leveraging the IP that they have to get eyes on this. Like, I know people who don't even know that PlayStation has a VR component. Like, that's a real thing. Like, people like in my age group who are interested in tech, who like play video games. I think I mentioned PSVR to a friend of mine, and he was like, "What is that?" He was like, "What is that?" And I was like, "Oh, it's a PlayStation VR component." And he was like, "What do you mean?" Like, I had to show him. I had to like send him an image of it. It's like, this is a real thing. And it's like, whoa, this is the thing this is the thing that's been around for 5 years. Yeah,
I was gonna say it's old. It came out in 2016 now too. So
yeah, so like, I don't know. Like it's good that we're getting all these games, but again, it's like all of these look like. To me, when I see these games, like, all I see is words. You know what I mean? Like, I see words on a list. Like, what is it? What are some of these? Do we know the names of these yet?
Yeah, we have Doom 3 VR, which we know, but then we have Fracked. That's one of them.
Fracked.
Zenith.
I Expect You to Die too. You know, like, I don't know anything about these titles. You know, I have no idea. I don't even know what I'm looking for. Nothing about the name really tells me anything about it. And the way that I feel about it as like somebody who is interested in this stuff, I feel barely compelled to even check out what these things are. You know, so what is your average consumer going to think? You know, your average consumer is going to be even less interested. What they're going to pay attention to is like, whoa, Resistance VR, what's that? You know, Horizon VR, what's that? Like, you need those big tentpole IP to draw people in, and then those people who come in because of those big IP are going to be more open to experimenting with these other titles, and that's how you draw people in. That's how Sony seems to understand that's how exclusives work with consoles. But for some reason in the VR space, they just don't leverage any of this power that they have, and it's just weird. I just think it's like a really missed opportunity, and they've had 5 years to do it, you know, so it's not even like this is an unwarranted like criticism right out of the gate. It's just that they've had a lot of time.
What do you think about these announcements, Dustin?
Yeah, I think that like, I went and watched the trailers for almost all of them, and I think that they look really cool. Especially what was the run and gun shooter from In Dreams? Which one is that?
That's what is that? Wrecked or whatever it's called, or Fracked.
Fracked. Yeah, that one looked awesome.
Yeah, it does.
And also, shout out to Shell Games, one of Pittsburgh's only developers. So shout out to the home team here. But yeah, I mean, I would love the idea of covering PSVR more. And I think that also, I mean, not to call you guys out, there's a long list of PSVR titles that I'm pretty sure that you guys haven't checked out yet, that I would highly
totally true.
It's totally true. Yeah.
It's totally true, because to Chris's point, see, this was what was weird, Dustin, was I liked that Sony was having a concerted effort to support PSVR. It almost puts PSVR 2's kind of weird announcement in context, because they wanted to announce these games probably. They don't want people holding back. We now know the backwards compatibility and all that, so they kind of put their ducks in a row. I appreciate and respect that, but when you go look at how they did this, they announced these games a half an hour apart from each other. Yeah. They announced one, then 30 minutes later they announced another, then 30 minutes, and I'm like, what are you doing? I don't. And they almost said it in the blog post, like, we're doing it differently this year. And it's like, this is horrible, because why not like make a big deal out of one of them a week, or have a PSVR state of play?
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah. And keep the expectations realistic. Be like, hey, this is a PSVR focused state of play. That way nobody goes in there expecting, like, you know, God of War Ragnarok footage. You know, people go in there expecting to see cool new stuff for VR. And, you know, I that would have been a way better way to do this, because it would allow people to, first of all, see these things instead of just reading about them, which I think is ideal. Yeah, man, they just need to be better at announcing this stuff.
And Chris, I'm in agreement with you that I think that they've done a poor job of leveraging their IP completely. And
yeah,
you know, there's no big PlayStation game, or I'm trying to remember, is there really any big tie-in with any of their big IPs at all?
Not a single one. There's not a single
Dreams, and that's basically it.
To their defense, though, they have gone like really hard with like a lot of quality titles that may not have been exclusive, but or at least started, like Tetris Effect, amazing VR component, Skyrim VR, also awesome. Those are no longer exclusive. So it is kind of interesting that there's this dynamic of, it's like, okay, well, you're leading with quality content, which is fantastic, but you're not baiting people the right way to dive in.
Yeah, like it doesn't matter like how much quality content is there. What matters is how many eyes are paying attention to it, and the reality is that your big IP are going to get more eyes on it, and that's not to say that these games don't matter or that they're not as good. In many cases, hell, like if they made like a Horizon VR, I wouldn't be surprised if it's not even half as good as some of the best shit on PSVR. But the important thing is that you have eyes in that space, and then you get that space out there to more people, and then when they're done with Horizon VR, they might be like, oh, that was okay, but VR is kind of cool, and like what else is available? And then they'll stumble across stuff like Fracked, and maybe they'll love it. It's just basic marketing that I feel like they understand, but for some reason it's just very strange that they haven't leveraged this at all, especially because they've been working with, I mean, I know they've recently purchased Insomniac, but they've been working pretty closely with Insomniac for a while, and PSVR has been out for a while, and Insomniac has a really potent VR team. It's just very strange. It's just it feels like all the ingredients are there for this to have been a lot more fleshed out for the last 5 years than it has been, and it just hasn't materialized in a way that I think most people would see reasonable. So I don't know. Like I do think we need to make a conscious effort to play more PSVR, but also they got to get their shit in a row, man. Like they because I'm just not compelled. Like I just don't feel compelled.
Yeah, the content, it's interesting because it's always been a challenge. VR content is just not compelling in the same way other content is, because you can't really figure it out by watching it. Even when they show, and I appreciate they show like real footage of it, and it looks like shit, compared to what we see these days, because that's what VR looks like when you have the headset on. But that's the way they need to show it. There are some big games here. I mean, Vertigo is a pretty big studio now, and Arizona Sunshine was a huge hit on PSVR. But to Dustin's point, like I've not even played Arizona Sunshine. I bought it, but I've never played it. And so we do need to be better about this, but it would have been cool to do a state of play. I agree. One more push with PSVR, but I think it's a good sign that they really are going to stick with this thing. And I appreciate that too, because a lot of people went out and spent a lot of money on this thing, and some of them seem happy about it. We're going to talk about actually one of the big PS Plus games, to their credit as well, is a big PSVR game. So they're trying, I think, a little bit more. And so we will in turn try as well, because I play so much Vita, which doesn't even really have resonance, that I should probably play PSVR too. PSVR, comma.
I think the interesting thing about PSVR is that it also, you mentioned Vita, and this is what made me think of this, is that I think it has a Vita-like quality that the people that have it buy a lot of games for it. So it's like once they scoop someone into the ecosystem, people end up buying a lot of games. I'm curious about what the numbers on that look like.
Yeah, me too. Because Chris had brought it up already. We don't have raw numbers, but he's totally right. It's the same shit every month, so it's not like anything is breaching that list. And we'll have to keep a close eye, Chris, as these games come out. If any of these games, prop up, because I assume that some of them will. I imagine.
Yeah. I imagine that audience is very hungry for new stuff, so I wouldn't be surprised if all of them make it to the top of some list. But it'll be easy to spot, because it would just be a break in the consistent, same as every month list that we've been used to reading for the last however many years at this point. So it'll be definitely easy to notice when one of these skyrockets through and displaces, I don't know, Beat Saber or Astrobot Rescue Mission or whatever the hell.
Doom 3 is up first, as I said, later this month, and not for nothing. I mean, I'm sure this deal was in place for a long time, but another Microsoft published game coming to PlayStation.
Yeah.
Marijuana has a mixed reputation, and for good reason. You can roll up some epic J's and pour out of your van like Spicoli and his friends in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, or take pulls from a bong so long that you need someone else to light it for you. That's all well and good, but the reality is marijuana also has curative and soothing properties too, properties that are being explored and exploited by more and more people as time goes on. That's because while THC is the stuff from marijuana that gets you stoned, CBD is the other stuff from marijuana, and CBD, well, it soothes, calms, and brings peace. And my friends at Feels are the masters of CBD. CBD stands for cannabidiol, and Feels extracts and isolates that compound from marijuana, making it into a tincture. You in turn put just a few drops of that tincture under your tongue, wait for a bit, and voila, its wonders start working. If you're a stressed and anxious person like me, CBD can very well help reduce that stress and anxiety, possibly even precipitously. I also struggle to sleep at night, and CBD has been a very welcome companion to help me catch some Z's, a common use for the substance around the world. And for those that suffer from persistent physical aches and pains, there's good news because Feels CBD can help bring you some relief too. CBD is considered a wonder substance by so many people because for so many people, it really truly works. And I can say that with confidence because Feels CBD has worked for me. But if you're feeling intimidated, Feels has a helpline staffed by real live people who can help you find the product that's right for you. And if you find their products useful, you'll love their membership options, which can both save you money and assure a steady supply of CBD tincture that's right for you. Become a Feels member today by heading to feels.com/symbols. That's feals.com/SYMBOLS, where you can save 50% off your first order with free shipping. Again, become a member and get 50% off your first order with free shipping by heading to feels.com/symbols. For CBD that can reduce anxiety and stress, help you sleep and more, go to feels.com/symbols. All right, number 2, I wanted to see what you guys thought about this. This isn't huge news, but I feel like you can kind of read between the lines with this, so let's read it out and then see what we think. Number 2, in tweets sent a week apart, directors of 2 of PlayStation's biggest exclusive hits in recent years, The Last of Us and God of War, let audiences know to keep expectations in check when it comes to the timing of their upcoming games. First is Cory Barlog of Santa Monica Studio, who tweeted in part, quote, "I don't know who needs to hear this, but when it's done." So he's saying when it's done, trust that it's what's best for everyone, end quote. Such news is understandable considering how surprising or considerably difficult the COVID environment has been for game development. However, it's also surprising as Sony revealed the next God of War game unprompted and went even further by stamping a 2021 date on it when no one would have been the wiser if it wasn't planned for this year. Santa Monica Studios' acclaimed God of War reboot came to PS4 in 2018 and is one of PlayStation 4's highest scoring and best-selling games. Was it 2018 that God of War came out? We talked about this before the show, didn't we?
Yeah, it was because that was Spider-Man year. That was Spider-Man, God of War, and Detroit, right?
Right. Yeah, God of War came out before we did the show, I think. I think that's why maybe I'm confused. I don't know if I think the show didn't even exist yet.
Not yet.
Neil Druckmann of Naughty Dog, for his part, was a little more straightforward in his Twitter proclamation, noting, quote, "If you tweet at me asking about a future project, I can't say anything. Please stay patient. We have several cool things we can't wait to share with you. As soon as we can, we will," end quote. The Last of Us Part 2 launched this past summer, scoring huge with critics and selling millions of copies. Naughty Dog is openly developing a standalone sequel to the original Last of Us's multiplayer mode called Factions, but it sounds like they have more than one game in development. The original The Last of Us came to PS3 in 2013 and PS4 in 2014. So I can't help but feel like this is somewhat coordinated, if not literally, then maybe somewhat figuratively based on conversations going on in the first party behind the scenes, because I don't know why else you would say this. Of course, you can't just talk to us on Twitter. We know that. I mean, that's been the case since Twitter existed. I don't know why they needed to come out and clarify that. Chris, what do you think about them both coming out and saying, keep your expectations in check?
I don't know.
In so many words.
Yeah. I don't know if it means that much. It seems to me like people who, because even I've felt like saying this, I know it doesn't really make a difference. Ultimately, people are still going to ask you, because chances are the people who are online today are not going to be online tomorrow, or the people who are not online today are going to be online tomorrow, and they're, it's just a completely different audience every time that's going to be, and they're just going to be like asking you questions regardless. But sometimes you just feel compelled to be like, hey, listen, I'm working on it, calm down. And I think that's probably all that's happening here. It is just so weird to me that they just stamped God of War with a 2021 date. Yeah. Like, I don't know why, because immediately when I saw it, like the moment I saw it, I was like, that's just not true. It was so blatantly false that, like, I don't know what the purpose was, because if you didn't do that, presumably, you know, Corey would be getting a lot fewer questions about it. I know it's been 3 years, so people would have been curious about it anyway, but certainly less so, because we're 3 months into the year that this game is supposedly coming out, and there's nothing to say about it. So obviously people are going to be like, what? And Last of Us 2 as well, with like factions multiplayer, which was, you know, announced quite a while ago at this point. We've seen very, very little, if anything. We've not seen anything about it.
Yeah,
really.
they technically haven't even really properly announced it, I think. Because remember, they announced it when people were disappointed that there was not going to be a factions mode in Last of Us Part 2, and that's when they said we're going to do something separate, and that's all we've heard. So. Yeah,
so it's barely even real, like, you know. So but people know about it, so they're going to be asking questions about it. I think the first part, because no one's asking questions about Insomniac, you know, because we know that they're going to be putting out Ratchet and Clank. We know that they just did Spider-Man. Nobody's curious about that because we know. So I just think this is just an example of just two of the studios that are shrouded in the most mystery and simultaneously the most transparently working on other things. That it's just the audience being like, what the hell's going on? And just being really curious. And both of them probably like around the same time, presumably in the same group chats, you know, presumably in the same email chains, who are just like, yeah, I'm getting that a lot too. And maybe they'll say something, and then, you know, the second guy's probably like, oh yeah, he said something. Maybe I'll say something. I don't know if there's really that much to read into it. All I know is that Naughty Dog's definitely working on something else. At least in the pre-production phase, I'm sure they're working on whatever the hell their next thing is going to be. I hope it's not another Last of Us, but you know, God willing.
I suspect it won't be. I've said before, I'm not even totally convinced they wanted to do a second one to begin with.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Although I think it's an extraordinarily good game. I think they would have been happy to do something else. But Dustin, what do you make of this coincidence or not of Corey and Neil kind of checking everyone a little bit?
So the main thing that came to mind to me is just that you have to imagine that some of this reaction comes from just what it's like being on Twitter day to day as a studio project lead, or whatever you want to call it. Just because even for me, like I have less than 4,000 Twitter followers, and sometimes I feel like every once in a while it's like I can't keep up with everyone either trying to say something to me or get back to people. So I'm sure that they have dozens of people asking them every day about these things. And
hundreds.
You know, even if you can know that Twitter is not a representation of reality, but when 12 to 30, however many people are knocking at your door every day saying the same thing, I'm sure it's going to start to bother you. So I have some sympathy for that, if that's what this is spawning from. But yeah, as far as the games themselves, I don't have much to add from what Chris said, other than it's like, it just, I don't know if Sony felt like slapping 2021 on that God of War trailer would entice people to buy it. It's that little extra step to get people to buy a PS5, and they're just like, oh, well, we know it's not 2021, but it might encourage someone to buy one as fast as possible as opposed to waiting. So
I think that's definitely what it was.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's possible. I don't see why that wouldn't be true. They always want to compel someone with future promises. It could be also an identification that they realize early on, like, we're going to have a gap of games. Things are not lining up for us internally. And obviously COVID has been quite troubling for them and for every publisher of games and developer of games. So I don't know. I feel like there's probably not too much here. It just, to me, it indicates like you got to let go of that God of War 2021 dream. At the very least, I feel like we can say that, because even if God of War was ready in 2021, see, this goes to show you that even 6 months ago, they didn't quite know what the lineup of games was going to be, because why would you announce God of War in 2021 when Horizon is coming out in the fall of 2021? There's no way you would release those games next to each other. So that would be nuts. If they did something like that, I'd be so mad, because I was like, why would you do that? Those games should be separated by a year or more, you know? So that to me says like Horizon this fall, if that. I still am not convinced Horizon's going to come out this year either. I think that if that's true, they're going to pull a Drive Club and not say anything for a long time. But then it goes to show you like everything's getting bumped and it creates interesting questions. Returnal and Ratchet, and then we don't really know. We assume Horizon, but I don't know. All right, number 3 is just kind of a clarification. We talked about this last week, and last week we relayed word from website Video Games Chronicle that PlayStation's vaunted first-party team Japan studio is being heavily reworked. The report noted that on the back of weakening internal sales and a changing focus on Western development resources and second and third-party partnerships, many longtime employees of the studio haven't been renewed over the past few months, thinning the herd by design. This now puts high-profile exits in recent months in full context. The original report noted that Japan studio would basically be turned over to Team Asobi, the developer behind PSVR's, PS4's, and PS5's Astrobot games. In a statement given to the website after last week's episode, Sony confirmed the reporting. It said in part, quote, "In an effort to further strengthen business operations, SIE can confirm PlayStation Studios' Japan Studio will be reorganized into a new organization on April 1st. Japan Studio will be recentered to Team Asobi, the creative team behind Astro's Playroom, allowing the team to focus on a single vision and build on the popularity of Astro's Playroom. In addition, the roles of external production, software localization, and IP management of Japan Studio titles will be concentrated within the global functions of PlayStation Studios," end quote. In other words, they've cleaned house even more extensively than originally reported. Japan Studio was founded in 1993 and was long known for its production support, helping to shepherd many more games than it made internally. However, it also incubated a number of internal teams, including Team Ico, Team Gravity, and others. Real Radic wrote in and said, "Hey, CDC. Sean Layden, who's the old CEO of PlayStation, replied to a tweet to the Sony Japan reorganization with a sad face of Parappa the Rapper," another guy who came out of Studio Japan. "Not to get too conspiratorial, but do you think this could have been one of the driving factors for him to leave? Sean Layden has long ties to the brand, having worked both out of Sony Japan and Sony Europe in the PS1 and PS2 era, working on titles like Vib Ribbon and Medieval. His departure always seemed sudden to me, and do you think Sony Japan would be a different place now if he stayed in charge? Take care, guys, and keep up the great work." I don't know. It's pretty clear to me that Layden was probably just not renewed himself or pushed out in that regard. That happens to CEOs all the time, and a lot of that stuff is just quietly handled, mostly because the CEOs, the ex-CEOs, have no reason to tell you or break NDA when they're getting paid $5, $10, $15, $20 million. So I don't know that it has anything to do with it, but I am a little concerned about losing Japan. The more I think about it, the more I feel like we're losing something, because Team Asobi is great, but Japan Studio had this, like, even their logo appearing before a game, it kind of felt heavy. And
yeah,
as I mentioned last week, they are the original Sony development studio that Sony owned. They're not the oldest studio, but they're the first one that Sony founded itself. So there's something there too. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I think it's super depressing. I think Japan Studio, I think there's a lot of there's obviously a lot of history there, but I agree with what you said about like the heft of that logo and just the heft of that name, where it really connected PlayStation to Japan in a lot of ways. And I think a lot of people are kind of, maybe they're reading into things and maybe they're not, but it just feels kind of interesting that, Japan Studio is closing and Sony is having this like far greater focus on, the West as far as like their marketing goes, and as far as their releasing goes, and as far as their games go, and as far as like their dev studios go. It does feel like Sony is, and I don't want to, it's weird because I don't want this to sound like an inherently negative thing, but it feels like they're Americanizing Sony,
Definitely. They definitely are.
And to lose Japan Studio is kind of that's kind of a big deal, I think, internally and just for the culture of PlayStation, because that's just like, that's just such a, I just feel like that's a big deal, even if those games aren't necessarily like, these aren't Uncharted, these aren't Last of Us, these aren't God of Wars, but these are, part of the ecosystem that I think maintained a big part of the character of the ecosystem and kind of created this kind of interesting environment. Like, I remember whenever I would see that logo, I would know that I was in for something that was like inherently unique and inherently interesting. And I feel that way about God of War and Uncharted too, but in a very, very different way. Like whenever I saw Naughty Dog or Santa Monica Studio, I knew that I was in for something cool. But Japan Studio was something that I knew that I was in for something like just interesting and artful, and artistic and very. I don't know. This is sad. There's no way to really argue that. I think it's really sad.
Yeah, I think we haven't really seen the fruits of Japan Studio in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about Parappa the Rapper and Rain and Tokyo Jungle and all that stuff, it's like these are not wild successes, but they were really weird, and I think can only come from the incubation at that studio and the kind of the spirit of that studio. And only longtime PlayStation fans or people that are really experienced with PlayStation games for a long time will know that, like you said, it was like a seasoning.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't really the meat of the ramen. It wasn't the pork of the tonkatsu, right? It was like the seasoning that made it what it was. And it's I agree with you. PlayStation's going to feel a little bit different. I don't know how a Japanless, it's not Japan. I mean, I don't want to be dramatic, but a PlayStation which has removed Japan from being that important is a different PlayStation. And to your point, I mean, we knew that they were reorganizing around America and that America won the back. I can tell you this just from my own knowledge, but it's been reported like there was a civil war behind the scenes between Europe and America and Japan, and America won. They started winning with PS4 when they got PS4 first here, but they brought the headquarters, like the whole kind of chain of command from Tokyo to San Mateo outside of San Francisco. So the whole company is run out of here now. So that's part of it. But Dustin, how do you feel about kind of Japan Studio kind of moving into the ether and kind of the partnerships that they, I think about Level 5, I think about PlayStation Camp and all these different developers that kind of came through and clap hands and whatever. I don't know. What do you think?
I feel like it's the kind of one of the final remnants of a Japan-focused Sony and PlayStation. Like, I was trying to find a source for it, but there is an article over at PlayStationLifestyle.net from Rebecca Smith that basically the Nintendo has completely dominated Japan to the point where they have all but pushed Sony out. And so Sony's probably looking at this thinking like, let's shift our resources to a more global focus as much as we can because we're not winning in our home market anymore. So why would we make stuff tailored for mostly them, but may apply to people over here, like Colin, you and I like Japanese stuff quite a bit. But so to me, I mean, it's unfortunate, but it just seems like a logical progression of the market.
Yeah.
It's just wild to see Sony pulling out of Japan in that way because it's just such a Xbox thing, you know what I mean? Like Xbox is typically like, oh, we're not winning in Japan, let's just like whatever, let's focus on the US. And it's just very strange to see Sony kind of doing that. It's just very, very bizarre because I think Xbox is in a unique position as like the sole American developer where they're not really at risk of losing what many Xbox players would consider to be their culture, and in fact they stand only to gain really from like all these investments in like Bethesda, and even if they invest in like Japanese studios, it's like, oh great, we get some more like interesting games from an American console manufacturer. But like Sony pulling out of Japan means there's like a loss there that wouldn't be felt with Microsoft, and it's certainly never going to be felt with Nintendo because they just own it. It's just weird. It's just a very weird future that we're heading into.
And we have to remember, too, that Sony burned a lot of their Japanese audience with the way that they were censoring games. So that has to be at least maybe not the main driver, but it's definitely an element, you would think.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think a lot of it has to do with just kind of a series of things that have happened where you look at it and you feel like Sony has no one to blame but themselves, that they lost that territory only because they let themselves lose it. It's not to say that they were ever winning in the handheld market. They weren't. Nintendo's dominated the handheld market, but as we've noted, PSP still sold 80 million units. It's still a incredibly successul handheld, and Vita still is being sold over in Japan. So they ceded that territory. It's what I've said for years. It's like you are letting them win without even trying to fight them. And it's why I really feel like they should make a handheld again. It's not only because I really want one, of course I do, but it's like, what are you doing? Especially with now these rumors are coming out that Nintendo's going to make a new OLED Switch with 4K output and stuff. It's like, you guys are fucking up. You need to figure out a way to get back into this territory. And I think it's a cop out to say like, well, just phones and tablets and you'll connect your DualSense to your tablet. It's like, no, look at what your competitor's doing. You're in the same market. what are you doing? You know, and also look at the games they sell. I talked about this on one of the shows I appeared on as a guest recently. They have like 5 games on Switch and Nintendo that have sold twice as many copies as any PlayStation game. You know, they have event games, and as much as I think that The Last of Us, and frankly, just The Last of Us is a straight up better game than anything on Switch, right? God of War is a better game than anything on Switch. That's my true opinion. But we don't have event games, right? They do. Animal Crossing is a game that will be played for years. Smash Brothers is a game that's being updated for years. Mario Kart, which is the second best Switch game, is not even a real Switch game. And they sold 30 million units. At full price, by the way. So I don't know why Sony thinks they can just continue to ignore this, because actually it's just like classic if you study military history and you study tactics. Like, you keep backing up and they're going to keep coming. You know, It's not like they're just going to stop and be like, well, they're backing up and they're retreating. It's like, no, you're just giving them more and more and more and more territory, and they're going to start coming for you on your territory now, because they don't have to worry about handhelds now. They dominate. So now what can they do in the console space? Well, the rumors out of Japan are that, like I said, they're going to have a 4K capable handheld. You're going to have to dock it, but they're there now. Now one of your advantages is gone again. Because so for me, if I were in charge of Sony, and I'm not, if I were in charge of PlayStation, which Jim Ryan is, I'd be like, we got to invest in new hardware that can compete with Switch. They're the enemy, as far as if I were to be like, we want them. We want people that have Switch to start buy our Animal Crossing. We want people with Switch to buy our Zelda. We have to do something for them. And I don't know. It's so I think you're right, Dustin. I think that's just another ingredient in this weird stew that they're making, where, because the censorship stuff was a big deal too. And by the way, that pushed people to Switch too, because Nintendo was like, oh, we're not censoring anything. And that was weird.
Dude, fucking Nintendo.
Yeah.
It's like, it doesn't make sense.
They wouldn't even let crosses in their games at one point. Like literal Christian crosses were not allowed in Zelda and in like Castlevania and stuff like that. That's why they called it a boomerang. You know? It's very strange. So the other question, I guess, Chris, is what does Team Asobi do? I mean, it's pretty clear that they're going to make more Astrobot, but they're going to hinge an entire studio around this character. It's kind of risky, I think.
It's a very Microsoft decision, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just very curious. Like, I don't know what exactly they're doing, because they seem to be taking the cues that Sony learns from or chooses to mimic are always the most confusing ones. You know? I really don't know what they're going to do with Asobi. Like, surely they're not going to just tie them to Astrobot. Like, surely they'll let them do something, at least like develop something else while they're doing the next Astrobot. Because Astro's Playroom, quite frankly, is, I think, probably the best thing on the PS5 right now.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's the most approachable thing. It's the most next gen feeling thing. It's, you know, Demon's Souls is beautiful, obviously, but I think I think Astro's Playroom is really like the only thing on next gen consoles that really feels next gen. Mainly because they have such an Ape Escape like focus on their controller, and kind of showcasing that. But I think Asobi's probably going to just take the mantle of like the entirety, all the responsibilities of previous Studio Japan. And maybe they'll grow Asobi. Maybe Asobi will be in charge of more than just Astrobot. Maybe they'll put them in charge of some other IP that maybe Japan Studios either didn't finish or didn't, or maybe they own and didn't get started on or something. I really don't know. I have no idea what their plan is, but they're putting a lot of pressure on Asobi, feels like. You know, imagine your entire team gets wiped out and you're like the sole player, you know. That's a wild, like, even if that's not exactly how it works, obviously, because like individuals are not one-to-one to studios, but that's a lot of weight to put on Asobi.
Definitely. That's definitely a great point. They almost were like the last one standing when you think about the guys, the internal teams that made NAC and all these other things. Everyone's kind of fallen off, and
I wonder how they feel about it. I wonder if they feel like a 2009 EA studio, you know? Like, I wonder if they're like, yo, what? Everybody's gone? Like, pandemic was right there. What happened?
Yeah. I hope the verbiage from Sony indicates that they will continue with Astro, but I feel like you can't just continue with Astro, and it's mostly because I guess a rescue mission is different, but most of these games are kind of bundle in or cheaper games that are meant to show hardware off. And I don't know, you don't really need them to do that again. I guess maybe with PSVR 2, I would assume it's a given that they're going to make a PSVR 2 game, but
that's probably what they're doing. Yeah.
Dustin, do you think that they're going to name, this is unclear to me too. Do you think that Japan Studio as of April 1st will just not be the name anymore and it's going to be Team Asobi? I mean, it's hard for me to understand. And this is why I get so annoyed. Like, I don't talk to Sony anymore, but if they sent me that statement, I would have so many questions that I feel like no one asked because they just printed the statement. Do you think that the name will change?
I mean, you would think that if it's really doubled down on Team Asobi, why would they keep Japan Studio as the name? Yeah. Like, people don't, when they think of Astrobot, I don't know. It's a weird title. I guess to me, I think of Team Asobi making it, not Japan Studio. So why would you even keep that branding? It's not like for that title and specifically it has any kind of luster to it. But
yeah, it's not Shadow the Colossus or something.
Right.
You know.
All right. Well, we wish everyone the best over there as these things continue to work their way out. Number 4, we mentioned earlier, Sony has revealed March's 2021's free games for PlayStation Plus users. And as of the time this podcast goes live, you can download them now as long as you have an active PS Plus account. This month, we're given 4 games, 3 for PS4 and 1 for PS5. The biggest game of the bunch by far is PlayStation 4's Final Fantasy VII Remake, Square Enix's 2020 smash hit. Also on PS4 is Remnant from the Ashes, Gunfire Games' well-received 2019 shooter RPG. Finally, PS4 will also receive Farpoint, one of PlayStation VR's most popular games, a second-party FPS from developer Impulse Gear, published by Sony back in 2017. Over on PlayStation 5, players get first-person puzzle game Maquette, which Dustin talked about earlier, a brand new title from developer Graceful Decay, published by Annapurna. Recall that PS5 players can also still download Destruction All-Stars this month for free as well, so that's still going as well. As always, we recommend that you add these games to your download list this month, even if you don't intend on playing them now, as you may want to later. New notable games have also been added to PlayStation Now's roster of streamable and otherwise downloadable games. The biggest of the bunch is no doubt infamous Second Son, Sucker Punch's 2014 PS4 debut, and the last game in the infamous series to date. Bandai Namco's 2019 air combat sim Ace Combat 7 Skies Unknown has also been added to the service for PS4, as well as Saber Interactive's World War Z co-op shooter from 2019 and Superhot, which came to PSVR in 2017 and remains one of the platform's most popular games. I forgot to write this as well, but Ratchet & Clank, also free for everyone. Again, reminder this month, 2016 Ratchet & Clank, regardless of if you have PS Plus or not. It's the stay-at-home game. So definitely download that if you're anticipating the new Ratchet & Clank game this June.
Yeah.
Kyle Melendez wrote into us and said, hello, CNC, and I'd bet D. Just want to say, all PS Plus subscribers, I know the big one is Final Fantasy VII, but Colin and Chris, I want you to demand people download and try out Remnant from the Ashes. What a fantastic Souls-like third-person shooter with procedurally generated world. The game deserves to be tried by more people, so please give it a whirl. That is all. Hope you guys have an awesome weekend. I actually looked it up when it was because I knew the name, but I didn't know exactly what it was. I know Gunfire made it, as I said, and they're the guys that do Darksiders. But it looks cool. The Souls-like stuff usually turns me off, but I'm so much better at shooters than I am at, I'm not that good at them, but I'm much better at shooter style hard games than I am at hack and slash style hard games in 3D. Yeah. That it sounded quite interesting to me. Chris, have you played this game?
No, this is one that I kept hearing about though. So I am curious. I might add it to the download list. I might jump into it because it is one of those things where I keep seeing it and I keep hearing about it. So I feel like at this point I might as well just jump in, you know.
Yeah, see what it's all about. Free for you on PS Plus. Dustin, are any of these games appeal to you?
No. I mean, I have Farpoint because I bought it with the aim controller and I did not think it was very good. That was a lot of years ago, so I honestly don't even really remember it. But I don't think you need the aim controller. I think you can just play with a Move or maybe even a DualShock.
Yeah, I don't think you ever need that controller, right? Do you? Maybe is there a game that forces you to use it?
Maybe
that would be lame,
but I don't know.
That would really isolate. Because could you imagine a game? You need the PS4, you need a PSVR, you need the PlayStation Move controllers, then you need this gun peripheral as well to play. It's like, all right.
I think the gun peripheral is just like a series of inputs wired in a different way, and it just arranges the the PS Move controllers in such a way that it's consistent. I don't think it actually is something that's required.
Sticks.
It does have sticks, but it's just like, it's like detachable inputs basically.
Right.
So yeah, no, it's not necessary. I will say World War Z is pretty good, honestly. That zombie shooter. It's just like third person Left 4 Dead. It's a very loose, very just very enjoyable, honestly. Like I was surprised when I played that.
Yeah, I was surprised that PS Now didn't also already have Infamous, so I guess they are being a little more clever by staggering things out. Farpoint, I think I bought as well digitally. I was trying to buy a lot of PSVR games early on just to show my support, and then never played any of them. So I think I own that. We're going to talk about Final Fantasy VII in a little while because there is a very specific note on that downloadable game that's going to piss people off. Because I thought that we were going to get real clever with it, and then they thought twice about that. So we'll talk about that in a moment. But first, number 5, an all-new co-op shooter is hitting PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4 this summer, and don't roll your eyes, because this one has a chance of survival based solely on its IP. The game in question is Alien's Fireteam, and according to IGN, it's a Left 4 Dead style 3-player co-op PvE shooter that was actually first teased by its developer back in 2018. At that time, the nascent team behind the game, Cold Iron Studios, was purchased by Fox subsidiary Fox Next from its original owner, Perfect World, for which it developed free-to-play games for Disney. So we're going to actually talk about Perfect World in a little while. Fireteam takes place several decades after the original film trilogy and will come packing a full story campaign. IGN, my friend Ryan McCaffrey over at IGN, has like a whole exclusive month of previews for the game coming up. Chris, are you this kind of felt like a game you might be interested in, but I don't know for sure how you feel about the Alien IP or if you're looking for a game like this.
Yeah, so this is the issue, right? Like, I love co-op shooters like this. I love Left 4 Dead. I'm looking forward to Back 4 Blood. I like anything like this, but the issue that I have is, and I don't know if maybe you feel this way or maybe I'm alone here, but Aliens is so tainted by Colonial Marines that I can't, like, even when I think I forget about Colonial Marines, every time Aliens comes up, I remember, especially specifically in the video game space, I just remember Colonial Marines. And I don't know, like, I'm curious about this. I know that that's not fair. You know, it's not, obviously this is an entirely different game, an entirely different team, an entirely different premise. And it's going for an entirely different vibe, obviously. Aliens, I think, is a good IP for video games. I think there's a lot to mine there. I think Isolation was particularly pretty good.
Yeah, it's a beloved game.
Yeah, it's a good one. But that's the thing. It's like when I played what little I played of Alien Isolation, I wasn't reminded of Colonial Marines. But this one does. And I don't know if that's me being too judgmental. I don't know if that's me being unfair or if that's warranted. I'm going to have to look a little bit more into it. I've only seen maybe 20, 30 seconds of gameplay. So I'm not super sure. I've got to do some more research, but it's definitely something that I'm going to, at the very least, look into. Because I think Aliens deserves to have a good shooter like this. I think it really sucks that Gearbox just totally dropped the ball with this, the IP, and just, I think people really underestimate how bad Colonial Marines was for that IP and just for its general image in the industry, because it really is just something that I can't forget. And that's by the way, that's somebody, like, I'm saying this, and I'm not even really that big into Aliens, you know? Like, I didn't have like a deep love for the series that was like betrayed or anything. It's just this awful game that is just in my head now forever.
It's funny, man, because with Colonial Marines, I remember seeing it. I was at the preview or like the reveal event at Comic-Con. I remember it was in New York Comic-Con. I think it might have been 2012. And they had like all the stars of the movies there and stuff. And the game looked really cool. But then people might not remember, this was the beginning of people hating Gearbox, because there was this whole conspiracy theory about a studio, Timegate, I think, made much of the game. Sega published it, obviously, and then there was rumors that Gearbox like basically took the basically was like taking the money for Aliens, putting it into Borderlands, and then hoping to take the money from Borderlands and putting it into Aliens and kind of triangulating. Whether or not that ended up happening or not is true, but there were like lawsuits filed. It was a big deal back in 2013 when the game came out. It was before PS4 even came out, and I never actually played Colonial Marines, and I really wanted to, because I remember, I think Jim Sterling did a video on it back in the day where they were showing the enemies in the game and like how, you know, when you freak out in a game and you're like firing things because you're anticipating they're going to attack you and hurt you. But if you just went into the rooms, a lot of the enemies would just walk by you and like not do anything. And it was all fucked up. And I really wanted to experience it.
Yeah.
I want to find a physical version because I want to play it unpatched as well.
Yeah. Didn't we do like oh my God. Didn't we do a story about it? How like the whole AI script was like broken, but it was like fixed by like one typo or something? Yeah,
that's right. That's exactly right. Last year we talked about how someone discovered that there was like a typo in like a .ini file or something, and it like fixed like half the game's problems or something, which is awesome. That's an awesome story.
So you saw it at New York Comic Con in 2012. You were there?
Yeah. So it was.
That's wild. That's the only Comic Con that I've been to.
Oh yeah. I was that's so funny. Yeah, I love knowing that when like you're at something like a game or something like I've been at like Yankee games or Jets games where it's like, oh, I was there too. Yeah, that was my first one, as I recall. That was also the year that I saw Until Dawn, when Until Dawn was a PS3 move game, which people might remember, and then it was like basically shut down and they moved it to PS4. So it was like at some bar and it was like this real elaborate thing, and I hate those kinds of events, and I think I left during the Q&A because I was like, I don't care about this. But I didn't know that it was going to be. In fact, I went because we thought it was going to be like a really big deal, you know, and it was a big deal for all the wrong reasons. So
what's ironic, Colin, is you and I first crossed paths at New York Comic Con in 2014.
That's right. So, that was the Comic Con. I knew I quit IGN, but didn't tell anyone yet. And I was on Long Island, and I must admit, I also went to that Comic Con that year and didn't do any work as well.
Right.
Like I didn't write anything.
It was at the Legend of Korra party.
Oh, that's right. It was in that hotel or something, right? Or in that tower. Yeah, right. That's right. We used to do this weird stuff at Kind of Funny where we would get like publisher sponsorships to basically just pay for parties, and it would be like, you know, the Hitman party sponsored by Square Enix, and it would just be our party. I don't have the audaciousness to do that on my own anymore, but Greg certainly did, and you always got those things set up. So yeah, that's right. That's where we met. And I remember. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, when we do a Last Stand meetup, we're gonna get it sponsored by like that mayo that you really like. Like we got to do a non-gaming sponsor for the party.
I would love that. Hey, by the way, mayo news. So as people know, when I moved to the South, I abandoned Hellman's for Duke's.
Oh, right. Yeah. Duke's. That's it.
But then I went to, or actually I saw in the store that there's Boar's Head mayonnaise.
Oh shit.
But they only sell Boar's Head condiments in like little jars. You know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. And so it's a little, so they have like their mustards and their oils and whatnot, and there's mayo. And so I got the mayo, and it's really good. But the thing is that they don't sell enough of it where I can't use enough of it. You know, like I want to use the mayonnaise. I don't want to just use the mayonnaise, you know? So what are you barking at?
Can't go wrong with Boar's Head.
Last Stand Media meetup in 2030 when the world is open again, sponsored by Duke's mayonnaise.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know when I'm going to be comfortable ever meeting someone again. Now I really have an excuse. All right. Number 6. If you love Vita like we do, then there's some good news. A new noteworthy game is coming to the handheld relatively soon. The game in question is Scourgebringer. I hate that word. A 2D roguelite that has been announced for PlayStation 4 as well. The game comes to both platforms on April 22nd. The studio behind the game is called Flying Oak Games, and while perhaps better known for in the iOS and PC spaces, their so-called twin-stick shooter RPG Neurovoider came to PS4 back in 2016. That was another game that people recommended me in that run of games that I talked about a few weeks ago that I ended up buying. Indeed, Scourgebringer already launched on other platforms, having come to the likes of Switch last fall. The game is coming at a bit of a premium price for the platform, $16.99, and it's unclear if the game will be cross-buy between PS4 and Vita. Physical collectors will note that the game is getting a physical release on both platforms as well, likely making it one of Vita's final physical titles. It was cute because I retweeted them because we love the Vita, but they did a little question where they're like, could this be the last Vita game? And I was like, please. But nonetheless, really excited about it. Gonna buy it sight unseen just to support them. Number 7. A couple of notable developers have been purchased by large parent companies, while another developer owned by a large parent company has seen layoffs. For starters, the good news. At the top, Epic Games, the publisher and developer of Fortnite and the owner and proprietor of the Unreal Engine, has purchased Mediatonic and the Tonic Games Group, the developers and ownership group behind 2020's smash hit Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout. This is the second major studio acquisition Epic has made in the last few years, having purchased Rocket League team Psyonix back in 2019. Before hitting gold with Fall Guys, Mediatonic was a for-hire developer doing largely iOS and free-to-play work. They also did, again, and I say this every time, they did that game Foul Play, which is a beat-em-up. That's so good. Meanwhile, Zynga, which was once known for its gigantic Facebook games and has since recalibrated what's left of it into core game space, has acquired Etra Games. Etra is an action RPG studio made up of ex-Blizzard employees and some people, I think, from Relic and others, and is most recently known for the PS4 game Torchlight 3, which came out in late 2020. The terms of this deal are likewise unknown, though Zynga notes in its announcement post that the team will be entering into development of, quote, a new yet-to-be-announced RPG for cross-platform play, end quote. The promised bad news comes in the form of layoffs at Paradox-owned Hardsuit Labs. We talked about them last week, which has shed headcount on the back of it being removed as the developer of Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. Paradox claims only a small number of employees have been affected and that the team is working on existing and unannounced projects. So some industry news there. But what I really wanted to ask you guys about, and Chris, I'm curious, I only knew about this reading about it this week. Zynga's kind of making like a core games play. I don't know the exact nature of it, but they're alive and well, maybe not well, but they're alive and they are trying to enter into the hardcore space. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. When I first saw Zynga mentioned, like in this article, I thought like, oh, that's got to be the bad news, right? Like Zynga's got to be associated with the bad news, but I guess not. I had no idea that they were even thinking about doing this. I don't know if they. Obviously, there's like a bias here because we just know of Zynga as making these like kind of shitty. Like, didn't they do like Facebook games and stuff like that?
Yeah, they did Farmville and stuff like that. I mean, they were the proprietors of that original movement of Facebook games.
Mobile, yeah. And so like the association that I have with them is just like fairly negative because I just think of just like all these like kind of like low effort, kind of like low hanging fruit, time wasting experiences. But I don't know, man. If they're making a play with the developer of Torchlight, like that's definitely something that I wouldn't have expected a couple years ago. It's definitely I didn't expect now. So maybe that's good. Is Don? No. Don Matrick left Zynga, didn't he?
Yeah, Don Matrick's gone. Yeah, he's gone. They have a new CEO now, and
right. Well, we'll see.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because if you look at their series of acquisitions, because I was reading their acquisitions list, because you guys might remember Words with Friends was like one of the original iOS hits, and they bought those guys, right? Like 10 years ago. They bought like a bunch of studios. But you know what the most interesting studio they bought, and I didn't even know this was available, but in 2017 they bought Harpin, which is I guess an old PC or like publishing company, and they own FreeCell and Pyramid and Spider Solitaire and all that stuff. So now Zynga owns that stuff, which is kind of cool. I didn't even know that those things were like necessarily available for purchase. And then they've bought like a bunch of technology companies as well. But you might be surprised to learn they still employ more than 1,000 people outside of their studio. So they're publicly traded too. So they have their revenues public, and we can learn more about them. But we would otherwise not talk about them on this show, with the exception of the fact that they are now gonna maybe make console games. So
yeah, maybe we'll pay closer attention to Zynga because I've had no reason to pay attention to Zynga for the last like 10 years. You know, so it'll be interesting to see how they make this play.
Definitely. And Dustin, I'm curious what you think about Epic jumping in and buying Mediatonic. This is Epic seems to be very selective with the developers they buy now. In fact, we'll recall that they started selling a bunch of shit. I mean, they own like People Can Fly, and they own Gears of War, and they let all that stuff go. So now they're recompiling again, and I feel like Mediatonic's actually a perfect studio for them because Psyonix is their only other major team, and they're very similar in that they're making totally unique platform agnostic games. What do you think?
Yeah, it's just so funny thinking back. I was so wrong about Fall Guys when Ben and I covered it. Ben, our editor, we covered it at PAX last year, and I think we were like talking about it, and we're like, this game there's gonna be no player base, and it's gonna be done before it even really starts. And we were clearly very wrong. I mean, now what's cool for them, what makes me excited for Mediatonic is that I'm pretty sure that the core team that made Fall Guys is pretty small. I don't know much about Tonic Games Group, but either way, They got very rich very fast from Fall Guys, and now they are even richer on top of that. So they've just like totally, completely did a home run. And I always love to see huge success stories like that. And so I don't know, what I'm curious about is like, if you look at the Rocket League community, if they've been happy with how Epic's new ownership has been to their community, which obviously there's no pro Fall Guys community or esports community for Fall Guys. Maybe there is, I don't know. But I'll be curious to see how that transition. You have to imagine the next step is free to play.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Fall Guys was so heavily buttressed in the same way Rocket League was, which was PlayStation Plus. You know, I mean, both of those games really lived and died by. I remember talking to Jeremy Dunham, who's a friend of mine. He was the vice president of Psyonix. He's the founder of Podcast Beyond. He used to be my boss at IGN. And I remember talking to him and about how fucking scared they were, because they were like, we don't know. We're selling the farm right away to get this game on the PS Plus, and we don't know if we're going to win or lose. And it was the smartest thing they could have done. But I think 9 out of 10 times it's not. So Epic's got that money. They're throwing it around. And I like what you said, Dustin. The Mediatonic guys did do the double cash out within about 6 months, which is huge. I mean, just huge.
Yeah.
If you're one of the owners of that company, yeah, you profited tens of millions of dollars last year. All right. Promised we would get back to Final Fantasy VII, number 8. Last week, we talked extensively about PlayStation 5's version of Final Fantasy VII Remake called Intergrade, which is launching on the console on June 10th. As a reminder, this version of the game will allow 4K resolutions or 60 frames per second frame rates, adds a photo mode, DualSense report, faster loading, and more. However, the biggest addition, as we know, is the new so-called episodes featuring Yuffie, the Ninja Star-wielding optional playable character from the original Final Fantasy VII. A character who, considering around where Remake leaves off, would be the next addition to your party you'd meet in the original. For starters, an FAQ on the game's official website, though, makes clear that the Yuffie DLC will only be available for PlayStation 5 users. So there was some confusion on if they would cross over or whatever. We know for sure now, based on the FAQ, no. Although those who own the game on PS4, so if you own the original game on PS4, you can upgrade the game for free on the new console. However, and this is where I thought we were going to get cute with PS Plus. And I've never seen this before. People can write in and tell me if I'm wrong, but I've never seen games separated like this. You'll note that Final Fantasy VII Remake is available for free on PS Plus for PS4 users. And if you grab that version of the game, you'll need to pay outright for the PS5 version. So in other words, they're tracking whether you paid for the PS4 version or not. If you paid for the PS4 version, you get the PS5 version for free. If you got the PS4 version from PS Plus, you have to pay for the PS5 version of the game. I've never seen this. So I don't know. I'm sure there are other examples people can write in. So it's not quite as elegant as we once thought. However, Square is also openly talking about Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2. The publisher confirmed in Japanese publication Famitsu that Naoki Hamaguchi will be the sole director of the new title, removing Tetsuya Nomura from that role and putting him in charge of the entire Final Fantasy VII initiative, which also includes some mobile games, which we're not going to talk about. Hamaguchi acted as co-director of Part 1 and previously directed 2015's Lightning Returns Final Fantasy XIII. He was previously a programmer and animator going back to Final Fantasy XII, launched on PS2 in 2006. So, just some confirmation about what we know about Yuffie and the episode and Intergrade. But Dustin, what do you make about this PS Plus stuff? I mean, this is kind of... in your mind, you're like, this is too good to be true, right? Because you're basically porting the game. People can just grab it for free, and they're not allowing you to do it. And it kind of makes me a little nervous about if they're going to start pulling this kind of bullshit, or if they're only doing it because of the partner involved in Square Enix.
It doesn't make any sense. I mean, it makes sense on the surface. Initially, you're like, oh, they're trying to get sales for the PS5 version. But my question is, so first of all, is there going to be an upgrade path? Like, can you pay for an upgrade if you got it from PlayStation Plus? Right now, it seems like no.
No, it seems like you'll have to buy it straight up again.
See,
if you got it from PS Plus. Yeah.
Right. So to me, though, it's like they're coming out with a new product, which is the DLC, the Yuffie DLC. And so you're not even letting those people buy it unless they buy the PS5 upgrade.
Right. In other words, you have to buy it once. You have to buy the game. You have had to buy the game once, which I understand. Right. I mean, it's so because you know what I mean? Like, you have to have either bought the game on PS4 or PS5. and then you get Yuffie, which you have to pay for on top of that. So everyone's going to pay for Yuffie. Yuffie's only available on PS5. If you bought it on PS4, you get it on PS5, the game. If you didn't and you got it through PS Plus, you have to buy the game and Yuffie. It's really quite confusing. I mean, it's not that confusing. I'm making it more confusing probably than it is, but I don't recall this ever happening before. Usually you get the benefits of PS Plus, and that's what I thought they were doing, actually, was like, they were like, all right, we wrung the water out of this stone. Let's make Final Fantasy VII free, get the lump sum money from Sony, and then people buy the DLC for $20 or whatever. But it seems like they're actually going to be going in for... Intergrade's probably going to be 72, so you're looking at 90, you know?
Well, if you buy the $70 PS5 SKU, it comes with the Yuffie DLC.
Oh, okay, cool. So but 70 still, flat.
Imagine this scenario, because this is going to happen to thousands of people. They're going to get it on PS Plus, they're going to play it, maybe they love it, and then they put it down. And then when the Yuffie DLC comes out, they're going to be like, oh, how do I get this Yuffie DLC? Wait, I have to buy the game again. I have to buy it now for $70 to play the Yuffie DLC. I'm guessing most people are going to say, yeah, fuck off, and just not play it. That's what I would do. Be like, are you kidding me? It just doesn't make any sense.
They're trying to protect their bottom line. I get that, but I don't know. Chris, what do you think about the idea of having to rebuy the game? It just seems antithetical to what they're setting up for everyone else. You know, Square Enix almost gets a pass.
Yeah. The issue to me is that they're not putting the DLC on PS4. Like, that is the big thing to me. Like, I understand, like, Final Fantasy VII Remake is just a year old. There's really no reason. It's kind of not super fair if you're just going to get the whole game from PS Plus, like, a year later for basically free, and then you just get the free upgrade. Like I could see why that would be, like, kind of infuriating. But at the same time, it's like, there's no reason why that DLC should be locked to PlayStation 5 then. You know what I mean? Because it's running off of a PlayStation 4 game. There's nothing that's presumably in this DLC that's going to, like, be so wildly powerful and wildly unimaginable that, like, it just couldn't run on a PS4. That to me is, like, the big thing. It's like, it seems they're intentionally locking DLC as a means to get people to pay for a game that they already own in some capacity, if they got to do PS Plus, which I think is shitty. I think the DLC should be available on PS4 and PS5. I think the main reason why you would want people to upgrade, or the main push to upgrade your game to PS5 in the first place, should just be the fact that it's a better experience. It should just be like, hey, this is 4K 60. It's way smoother, way better. Like, why would you not want this? As opposed to, hey, we're locking content behind this wall. I don't agree with that as a premise.
Yeah, it's,
you know,
maybe I'm giving Square Enix too much credit with this. I'm sure I probably am, but the only way I can think out of this, the only thing would be like, are you creating some sort of save chain that will connect to the new game, and therefore, you know, in coming years, and that's only going to be on PS5, and so you're trying to get people to move over? Does it have something to do with that? But I don't think it's that simple. I think I am of the mind that Sony is allying with Square Enix at the right time. Not only with Final Fantasy VII Remake and Remake Part 2, which clearly is also going to be a PlayStation exclusive, at least timed, but Final Fantasy 16 is a timed PlayStation exclusive, and Dragon Quest 11 was on PS4 only, and then came to Switch last year. But the new Dragon Quest is probably going to be a PlayStation exclusive too. So they're with Square. I think they're willing to bite the bullet with Square Enix because they're quite valuable. And maybe it goes back to what we were saying earlier, where that's kind of how you get your Japanese flavor. Is from your publishing partners, since you're not willing to put the work in yourself anymore. All right. More Square Enix news. Number 9. Square Enix has secured a tantalizing deal with one of the industry's emerging stars when it comes to remakes. Word comes by way of website gamesindustry.biz, which notes that the studio in question is Forever Entertainment. Though what's frustrating is that while we know what they're working on with Square Enix, that we know they're working with Square Enix, we don't know what they're working on. However, whatever IP they're working on, they're making multiple remakes within, and the possibilities are endless. Forever Entertainment is a Polish team responsible for a ton of smaller games, but it's a game from 2020, Panzer Dragoon Remake, that grabbed global attention. Panzer Dragoon, of course, is a famous Sega rail shooter first released on Saturn back in 1995. Forever is currently working on a remake of Panzer Dragoon's sequel, the 1996 Saturn game Panzer Dragoon 2's Way, and has also been working on House of the Dead remakes for Sega since 2019, though their release dates are still unknown. Forever has actually worked with Square Enix in the past, when 2018's Fear Effect Sedna, which I totally forgot about, was released with the publisher's blessing, continuing the long-dormant Fear Effect series from Eidos, now owned by Square Enix, hailing from the PS1 days. So, do you guys remember the Square Enix Collective, this term? This was when they were going to letting basically publish or developers pitch them on games from their IP. And one of those games that was allowed was a new Fear Effect game, which is a pretty obscure old IDOS series. So these guys have already been in the ecosystem, but I was surprised to hear that this wasn't really being reported anywhere because I don't know what they're making. It's pretty tantalizing. They say they're working on with Square Enix on one IP, multiple games.
Yeah.
Dustin, what is it?
My gut initially said maybe they're tapping back into Chrono Trigger, but with multiple games, there's only 2.
Yeah, Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross.
So
my thought was Front Mission. Because what they were saying, there's all this weird stuff in the Polish release, like that's translated, where it's like we're remaking multiple games under one IP and we're keeping them really true to form. So I was like, all right, what could it be? It's not Final Fantasy. They would do that internally. It's not Dragon Quest. They would do that internally. So it's got to be, I don't know. It could be, the other thing I was thinking is it could be Tomb Raider, but not like the 90s Tomb Raiders. You know, you got a fly in your face there.
I'm trying to not pull, like, there's a fly that's been flying around this room, and I'm just trying to not pull a Mike Pence and have it, like...
Yeah, land on your head.
Land on me. And that was, like, the closest it's come so far.
Yeah. It's almost fly season. So, I don't know. We don't know. We'll keep an eye on this. I do love that studios are starting to get known for very specific things, and these guys are known for remaking games. And it's very similar to Blue Point. I think that's pretty cool, and Sega identified these guys early. So, props to them. Because they got them down for 4 games before Square Enix actually nailed them down again. My theory will continue to be, my hope will continue to be Front Mission, because I love that series. It's a old strategy RPG series for people that don't know.
I'm taking back my theory. It's going to be Gex.
Gex could be Gex. They own Gex as well. I feel like Tomb Raider might be it, but I don't know. Do people really want to play Tomb Raider 1, 2, and 3 again? I don't know.
I could if they remake them well, I could see that being I don't see why not. Like the main issue with Tomb Raiders 1 through 3 are the controls, and if they could just like fix the controls, then you'd probably have a pretty good little trilogy of games there. Yeah.
That's the pre-stick era on PS1. Those games don't have stick control at all. So
yeah, but I remember loving those games like when I was a kid. I played them recently, and I'm like, I don't even know how I managed this, but you know, I think there's value there. Although I would love to see Gex. I wonder how all those like 90s references, there's those 90s references that are just like completely like lost to time. Jesus Christ.
It's very weird. Very interesting. Yeah. I love little mysteries like this. So we'll keep an eye out. All right, number 10. In the coming months, Sony will cease selling movies and television shows through the PlayStation Store, a service that began offering on both PlayStation 3 and PlayStation Portable, beginning with the advent of PlayStation Network some 15 years ago. In a brief and vague post on the official PlayStation blog, Sony's head of video, Vanessa Lee, wrote in part, quote, "We've seen tremendous growth from PlayStation fans using subscription-based and ad-based entertainment streaming services on our consoles. With this shift in customer behavior, we have decided to no longer offer movie and TV purchases and rentals through the PlayStation Store as of August 31st, 2021. When this change takes effect, users can still access movies and TV content they have purchased through PlayStation Store for on-demand playback on their PS4, PS5, and mobile devices," end quote. While not stated explicitly, Sony has seemingly always struggled to get traction with its a la carte offerings, and weak demand almost certainly led to this decision being made. Connor Bright wrote into us on Patreon, and he says, "Hey boys, just wanted to give proper respect while we all lay to rest an entire category on the PlayStation Network, movie and TV rentals and purchases. RIP to the service none of us knew we had, and even fewer used." I must say, and I'm curious, Dustin, have you ever bought anything on PS4? Because I have not much, but you know how they have that search functionality, which is really cool, that universal search functionality where it's like, you know, you search for a movie, it's like it's on Netflix, it's on Amazon. There have been a couple times for Knockback where I've searched for something and it was only on the PlayStation Store, at least with the things that I had available. So I've purchased things through them before, but certainly not regularly. What do you think about them dropping out?
They've been behind for a long time. I remember specifically when the PlayStation 4 Pro came out, and first of all, the PlayStation 4 Pro didn't have a 4K Blu-ray player in it, and the Xbox Series S did, which I thought was weird. But they didn't offer 4K.
That was a Chris hang-up too.
Yeah. But they
weird.
didn't offer 4K rentals on their own service, which I just thought was really weird. You had to go elsewhere. I was like, this is the only 4K ready device I have in my house, and their service doesn't even offer 4K rentals. And I still don't believe that they do. So, and that's a pretty standard now across whether it's Amazon or Apple TV or whatever. And so, yeah, they're just completely dominated by everyone else at this point. So what's the point?
Yeah. Yeah. What do you, Chris, have you ever bought anything, Chris, on PS Store? With movies and TV shows?
Not on the PlayStation Store. I have bought like movies and TV shows through the Xbox Store though, because when I was younger, I had like a 360, and it was like the first thing that I had. And you'd have to buy like Microsoft points on cards or whatever, and I would always have these spare Microsoft points. I'm like, what am I gonna buy? I guess like, I don't know, episode 2, season 1 of the Andy Milonakis show or something.
Oh man,
just like these really just random things that like I still have. If I open up my Xbox library, I just have all these shows from like eons ago, like Acceptable TV season 1, which is like a Dan Harmon, Justin Roiland thing before Rick and Morty in like 2008 on VH1. And like, I think the most recent thing I rented a movie on Xbox Live, like I think 2 to 3 weeks ago, because I couldn't find it anywhere else. I was like looking for a streaming service that had it, and none of them had it. So I rented The Kid Detective through Xbox Live, but I never used the PlayStation for it. But even the Xbox, I barely use for that. Like, is like, what the hell? What are you gonna do that for? You could just stream everything.
Yeah, it seems like maybe they were just acknowledging it's more work than it was.
Yeah,
than it was worth. Definitely. But I always just feel like giving your people as many options as possible is cool. I have to give them credit. They could have very easily given themselves preference when you search for that stuff. You know, they could have definitely made it hard for you to find anything you wanted and driven people to the PlayStation Store. So I respect that they didn't do that. Because I think they could have gotten away with it too. It would have just been a service. So it wouldn't have been really, you wouldn't have ever had the expectation that it would have been any different. So, so RIP. I don't even know what I had on there that I do own, but it's probably like The Exorcist and some weird shit like that. Like there was literally like a couple movies, like maybe Rosemary's Baby or something, where I was like, this is not available anywhere but on the PlayStation Store for some reason.
Yeah.
All right, number 11. Our post-COVID world may be taking shape in the summer of 2021, maybe a hell of a lot closer to normal than many of us may think. But we're going to go through the calendar year without perhaps two of the biggest physical events in nerd culture. For starters, website Video Game Chronicle reports that E3 2021 has been canceled, at least when it comes to an in-person show. This isn't a huge surprise, all things considered, but the ESA, the owner and operator of the show, still hasn't publicly commented. Instead, word comes by way of a new report from the Board of Los Angeles Convention and Tourism Development Commission, which the website scoured. In the report, it clearly states that the show is canceled, though live stream events are also still possible, with 2022 and 2023 still unsecured. So they haven't put down money to get the LACC in June of 2022 and 2023. So I think E3 might be in real peril. We'll see. Meanwhile, San Diego Comic-Con is also canceled. However, it's still unclear whether the event will return in July of 2022 only, or if there will possibly be a smaller in-person event also in San Diego, perhaps in November. So just a couple of things out there. We talking enough about E3. We know it's not going to happen. We knew these things were going to happen. These are just official words that they're not happening. I can't wait to ask you guys about this one. I almost wanted to put this one at the top, but it's really not germane to what's most interesting about our show. But this is fucking weird. I think this is by far the weirdest story of the week.
I love it.
Actor Tom Holland gave an interview to men's magazine GQ in which he basically confirmed for everyone, completely unprompted, that his performance as Nathan Drake in the upcoming Uncharted film is unlikely up to snuff. The magazine notes that the character Drake's emphasis on, quote, looking cool was an experiment in vanity that left an odd taste in the actor's mouth, end quote. He told the magazine in part, quote, as soon as you start worrying about, do I look good in this shot, acting becomes something other than playing a character. I think there are elements of my performance in Uncharted where I kind of fell under that spell of being, I want to look good now. I wanted this to be my cool moment. I had to play this very tough, very stoic guy, basically be Mark Wahlberg. My character is supposed to be a fucking action hero in this moment. Look, I haven't seen it, so I don't know if I succeeded in that. but it was an important lesson learned because at times it was less about landing a mark and go through the scene and more about landing a mark, stand like this and see my bulging biceps. It was a mistake and is something that I will probably never do again. End quote. Tom Holland is perhaps best known in his role as Spider-Man dating back to 2016's Captain America Civil War, and his Uncharted film, directed by Ruben Fleischer, is due out in February of 2022. In perhaps smaller news, we also have word on the Netflix adaptation of The Division, as Ubisoft's Tom Clancy brand continues to expand into the streaming world. The film will star Jake Gyllenhaal and Jessica Chastain and will be directed by Ross and Marshall Thurber. Gyllenhaal is best known as a well-known actor, who became famous on the back of 2001's Donnie Darko, with notable turns in 2005's Brokeback Mountain, 2007's Zodiac, 2014's Nightcrawler, and many others. Chastain's most famous film roles are likely in 2014's Interstellar and 2015's The Martian, while Thurber is the writer and director of the 2004 comedy Dodgeball, as well as the writer and director of the 2018 action film Skyscraper, starring The Rock. All right, so what? All right, so there are a few things about this. First of all, Tom Holland is sandbagging the movie, so that's obvious. So expectation should be in the gutter for the Uncharted movie, as far as I'm concerned. Here's the thing that I think is weird. He's describing the character as if he has no idea who Nathan Drake even is. You look at Nathan Drake for his cool moments when you're looking at his glistening biceps. What the fuck are you talking about? Nathan Drake is an action hero with a mouth. He's smart. He's intelligent. He has his little notebook. He's the exact opposite of what he's describing. You know, Nathan Drake looks cool because he's not trying to look cool. Nathan Drake is cool because he is not trying to be cool. And Jake Gyllenhaal Tom Holland is describing a character who is completely foreign to me as a huge Uncharted fan. Chris, what do you think?
I think it's interesting because I think they're obviously making a movie, and this is obviously like an action hero role. So he might be playing a character that, you know, it's not that he looks cool because he's trying to look cool, but at the same time, if you're playing the character, you kind of have to look like you're looking cool without trying to look cool. So I kind of like understand what he's talking about, but it's hilarious to me that Tom Holland is like notorious for having like a really, really open, he's like notorious for spoiling things. They never give him like the real scripts for things. They never give him like the real names of the movies that he's in because he always leaks them. He always just talks like really, really candidly about things. I'm actually like astonished that he has a career still. Not as like an insult. I just like, you know, like I like Tom Holland. I think he's pretty good in most of the things he's done. It's just staggering like how not tight-lipped he is. And just how blatant this kind of keep your expectations in check, guys, kind of thing is, you know? It's like a very wild thing to see in the
Here's the thing that really bothers me, Dustin. He says, I had to play this very tough, very stoic guy, basically be Mark Wahlberg. Then why the fuck didn't you cast Mark Wahlberg, who plays Sully, as Nathan Drake? It doesn't even make any sense. Like, have you ever played Uncharted? It almost makes me wonder, like, I'm sorry, like, I understand what you're saying, Chris, but like,
no, I agree.
He
with
is
you.
not
I think
describing
totally
Nathan Drake. You know,
yeah.
Dustin, what do you think of this?
But
by the way, it's a small
be...
wonder. Real quick, by the way, I'm sorry before I forget. Neil Druckmann had shit talked this movie.
Yeah.
And you can kind of tell now why. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I mean, it should be noted that like he's an actor, so he's going by whatever the hell the director's telling him. You know, like the director is ultimately in charge of like the performance and leading people into playing characters in an accurate, true to form way. So like even if this is bad, like which it likely probably will be because it's a fucking video game movie and none of these are good. But I still would say like I don't really think it would be Tom Holland's fault. I think it would be whoever put the idea in his head that he should be acting like a stoic action hero and like, you know what I mean? Like that's the director telling him, like clearly giving him notes that would push him in this direction, right? So it's like why would you direct your actor that way?
Yeah, that's right. A fair. You're right. The buck has to stop with someone. I think you're probably right. It's just like
it just bothers me whenever I see like really, really good actors like kind of like given the brunt of it's like Jared Leto's fucking stupid Joker, you know, with like damaged, like he didn't decide to write damaged on his forehead, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Like,
He didn't go into the makeup booth or the makeup trailer and do that.
There's only so much an actor can do with the material that they're given. And, you know, I would say, you know, I'm curious about this movie, but I've always long maintained that if you're gonna do a video game adaptation, a TV show is the best way to do it. And that's why I'm like far more interested in Castlevania and all these other like kind of like TV offshoots.
Yeah, even The Last of Us will probably be more promising. Yeah.
Yeah, even The Last of Us. Like everything on TV just seems like it would just be a better fit for video games. So this Uncharted movie to me is already garbage, but it was before this. So whatever.
Dustin, what do you make about the way he describes the character? I'm really hung up on this. Like, I'm really hung up on being like, I have to play Nathan Drake is stoic. What?
Yeah, what?
Nathan Drake is the antithesis of stoic. He's like a clown. I just don't understand what the hell. I don't know. I'm really maybe so bothered by this that I almost put it as number one on the news because I wanted to talk about it so bad.
It is astounding.
So let me put a different spin on this.
Please.
Which I think you guys are right, but let's think out loud for a minute. I don't know Tom Holland, but when I see the way that he is setting the table, so to say, he's setting expectations, reads like something that I would do as someone who often has low self-confidence, that you set the expectations low just because you have low self-confidence in yourself. So who knows, maybe it was a different role for him, maybe. And maybe he just doesn't feel confidence in himself, and so he feels the need to set expectations low. Maybe we'll be surprised, but probably not.
No,
I think you guys are probably right.
It's weird because Spider-Man is closer to Nathan Drake than whatever the hell character like he's describing when he says stoic. You know what I mean? Like Spider-Man's like a witty kind of like talk-backy kind of jerk. You know, who's also really smart. You know, so it's almost like it's almost like really good casting if you look at it that way, you know, where it's like, oh yeah, get the Spider-Man guy to play Nathan Drake. That actually seems perfect. He's just not swinging. And even in the movie, like actually like Nathan Drake swings a lot.
Yeah,
like
in the fourth game, he swings a lot. I mean, it's almost like he hit his head and forgot what character he was talking about. You know, so I don't know. I thought.
I think it's more likely that they just wrote a bad movie and you know they wrote a terribly like realized version of this character that just doesn't match up with what the games portray, and Tom Holland's just like, I gotta do the character that's on the script, so I guess like he's stoic. Like stoic is not a word that I would use to describe Nathan Drake at all. No. Stoic is like Master Chief is stoic. Like,
yeah, or even Joel is stoic. Like
Joel is stoic.
You know, like it's very weird. It was almost as if he was describing a different movie, and they're like, dude,
The Mandalorian is stoic.
Right, exactly. It's almost as if to me, it's like, did you read the wrong script? You played the wrong character, Tom. I wanted to read this though. This is somewhat unrelated, but we got this from the audience. I'm really interested to see what you guys think of this. Amin wrote into us. Says, hey guys, this is a movie game question. On Jaffe's podcast, David Jaffe's, a couple of weeks ago, he interviewed the ex-head of the secret San Diego team they formed. He said that the team was originally planned to make video game movies based on their first-party IPs. What's interesting, though, is that the team would make these full-length movies in the engine of the game that it was based on. So a God of War movie would be made with the God of War engine they used to make the game, an Uncharted movie with the engine, etc. What do you think about making game movies being done in engine with the same character models, etc.? While I usually wouldn't want video game movies to be made, I couldn't help but think this would have been a great idea. Wouldn't it alleviate most of the criticisms most game movies have? Fans wouldn't have to worry about the actors being too different, or the world would be captured the right way. It would also tie into the games in a more seamless way, I think. What do you guys think? This was interesting. What he's basically saying is that they would basically have animated films built on Decima, built on whatever engines they're using for the various games internally. It's an interesting idea, but I don't think that's what PlayStation fans want. What do you think, Chris?
I don't know, like, because it reminds me of like Advent Children, you know, where like Advent Children wasn't built on the engine, obviously, because like that was way back before CG and gameplay was all that similar. But like I think now, like modern engines, you know, like Kingdom Hearts looks like shit, but it also looks better than, Toy Story 2. It looks better than a lot of CG movies, like even in gameplay. So like, I don't know. I think this could be like a cool idea. I still think in general, like the goal of trying to get a movie out of these series is just like misguided. I think if you're going to want to tell a story, about these universes, they need to be serialized. They need to be TV shows. There's just no way you're going to condense the plot of even the most simple game in an hour and a half, to 2 hours. Like even something like Portal, I think you would need. And Portal has like 2 characters, and I feel like even Portal would need like more than like an hour to get all of the like intricacies of like the Rat Man and Aperture Science and all this other shit that goes on. I just think that the goal of a movie is just misguided. But I do think the application of in-engine kind of, highly detailed and rendered cutscenes that use kind of all of the engine's processing power on just rendering like individual like pre-rendered animations and not having to worry about rendering things in real time. And like I think that would be really an interesting show. Not only would it be an interesting showcase for the engines themselves as like a way to attract kind of talent and a way to show off what your tech is, but I do think that is not necessarily a bad idea of like maybe doing like a mini series in engine. Because that's what I've wanted for a long time for like a lot of the series that I like. I would love a Metal Gear Solid show that was just honestly like, even if it was just in the Metal Gear Solid 3 engine, like I think that would be fun as hell.
It's almost like machinima in a way, right? Like
it is
the small M machinima, like the red versus blue stuff back in the day and all of that, right?
Yeah, obviously with more production.
Yeah, I mean better, but it's the same idea.
Yeah. But I think the reason why machinima was so like red versus blue was so successful is because it kind of played off of your understanding of the aesthetics of that world, and it kind of made everything like a little bit more not believable, but more natural than it would have been if it was just like somebody animating it from scratch, or if it was somebody just like putting on those costumes and just acting it out. There's a charm and there's a familiarity to engines and their assets and their aesthetics and their art styles that I think would honestly be a really good idea. I just don't think a movie is the right call.
I agree. Dustin, what did you think about this idea of San Diego having a spin-off studio that would promote in-engine animation?
I think it would be most effectively used if you were using it to tell stories maybe within the game timeline or world that wouldn't lend well to gameplay, right? Like maybe they do a God of War, I guess it wouldn't be prequel. The time between God of War 3 and God of War 2018, maybe they could tell a miniseries using the in-game engine about what was Kratos' life between then and then.
Yeah.
Something that wouldn't necessarily, I mean, they might be able to make a game out of that, but something that wouldn't necessarily make sense for a game, but would make sense for a movie or some sort of passive storytelling, we'll
like
say.
Lore kind of, or like stuff that you would like maybe read on like collectibles in The Last of Us, or something that would be like something that usually would be relegated to like maybe like a prequel novel or something, or like a book tie-in. I think that would be a good idea. Yeah, it would help flesh out the universe. It would help ground it in the universe because it's using the same assets and it's using the same kind of general feel of the game that it's based on. I don't think this idea is entirely without merit. I think it's actually kind of good.
All right, number 13 is a wrap up. It's extensive, so everyone sit back.
Oh boy.
Website Gematsu reports card game Signs of the Sojourner and puzzle game In Rays of the Light are both coming to PS4 on March 17th. Strategy RPG Black Legend is coming to PS4 and PS5 on March 25th. Horror game Wraith the Oblivion Afterlife is coming to PlayStation VR on April 22nd. JRPG Neptunia Reverse is coming to PS5 on June 8th. Adventure game Ever Forward is coming to PS4 and PS5 on June 29th. Frantic Shooter from Indie Creates Blaster Master 03 is coming to PS4 on July 29th. Beat 'em up soccer game Guts and Goals is coming to PS4 and PS5 on August 31st. FPS Exophobia is, you'd like that one, you should check that one out, Chris, is coming to PS4 and PS5 on October 5th. Adventure game Tranquil is coming to PS4 and PS5 this summer. Eagerly anticipated roguelike sequel The Binding of Isaac Repentance is coming to PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 in the third quarter of 2021. And both dungeon RPG Undernauts Labyrinth of Yoni and arcade shooter Pocky and Rocky Reshrined, which also looks awesome, are coming to PS4 this fall. The website also relays word that the American Games Rating Board ESRB has rated both old school like action game Katana Zero and 3D platformer Demon Turf for launch on PlayStation, Katana Zero for PS4, and Demon Turf for PS5. Developer Arc System Works has announced a delay to its anticipated upcoming PS4 and PS5 fighting game Guilty Gear Strive, bouncing it from April 9th to June 11th. Let's see. Developer Hidden Path Entertainment has revealed that it's working on an open-world RPG set in the Dungeons & Dragons universe. They're hiring for it now, though a release date hasn't been given. Website Push Square reports FPS Sniper Ghost Warrior Contracts 2 is coming to PS4 and PS5 on June 4th, and Shooter Zombieland VR Headshot is coming to PSVR later this year. The website also confirms that RPG Disco Elysium The Final Cut is still PS4 and PS5 bound this month, though it still has no date. Website IGN reports survival game Breathedge is coming to PS4 on April 6th. Publisher Koei Tecmo has revealed the delay of Dynasty Warriors 9 Empires, which now has an indefinite release date on PS4 and PS5. Publisher Electronic Arts, meanwhile, tells website Polygon that it's delaying its upcoming, still unannounced Need for Speed game in development at Criterion so that the team can help DICE with the upcoming Battlefield game for PlayStation 5, which is still slated for a fall 2020 release date. We'll see about that. Sony-owned developer San Diego Studio has revealed a huge new mode in its long-running MLB The Show franchise, though it'll only be in the next-gen versions like MLB The Show 21 on PlayStation 5. A stadium creator. There's a whole... this is a huge deal, apparently. I didn't know. There's a whole trailer for it. People are really excited about it. And finally, publisher Team 17 has revealed that the Game Kitchen's 2019 game Blasphemous has surpassed 1 million copies sold. I bought that game a long time ago when it came to PS4. I didn't play too much of it. Everyone recommends it to me. It's basically a Soulsborne Castlevania Metroidvania type game.
That's a lot.
It's a lot of stuff.
So I don't know if you know about Katana Zero, but Katana Zero is awesome. And
yeah, I do. I've been waiting for it to come to PS4 because it's on Switch, I believe, right? And PC.
Yeah, it's on. I played it on. It was on Game Pass.
Oh, so
that's how I played it. But it's real good. It looks great. It's very bizarre and breathage, whatever the hell.
Yeah, breathage. I don't know how to say that. I saw that on IGN.
Breathage, whatever. It looks okay. It looks like Subnautica in space, but I hear that that's actually like not super accurate. It's only like a surface level accuracy. So,
but like I said, Chris, that FPS exophobia is right up your alley. Yeah, it's like an old school Doom type game.
Sick.
All right, let's get into listener messages, listener mail, as we always do. Tradition dictates. We wrap up every episode of Sacred Symbols with 6 questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas from Patreon, patreon.com/laststandmedia. Remember, go support us there. We could really use your help. Dan Root wrote in and said, "Hey, CDC, first time, long time, also new to Patreon. Welcome, Dan. Just curious about your thoughts about fanboys. Why is it such a bad thing? Everyone has their favorite sports team they bleed for, so why can't this apply to PlayStation or Xbox? Love everything you guys do." I think this is a totally compelling argument. I wonder, Dustin, let's start with you. What do you make of the fanboys, and if they're the purpose of them, if they're good or bad, and how it kind of differentiates from being a fan? Remember, the term fan comes from fanatic. I think we often lose sight of that. Fanboy is really just bringing the word back to fanatic in some sense. And I'm a huge fanboy of the Jets and my sports teams, but I think the difference, Dustin, is that I call these companies, these organizations out when because I'm a PlayStation fanboy in some way too, but part of that is being, calling them out, being honest and all that. So anyway, talk to me about your thoughts.
I think we're getting into a game of definitions here, right? Like
semantics.
I have a PlayStation neon sign back here. Some might consider that makes me a fanboy. And I have like tons of PlayStation merch, right? To me though, when the term fanboy is used, that means like an irrational following of a brand or an entity or something. Like you see these people that they create their entire Twitter persona around Xbox or PlayStation, and they solely exist on the platform to fight with people. That's what I think of when I think of a fanboy, someone who's like follows something to a religious degree. So again, I don't know if that's what Dan is advocating for. So again, that's why I was saying it comes down to what is our definition of a fanboy. Some people would probably think I'm a fanboy of PlayStation, and that's fine. But like you said, oh wait, did I see the fly?
I didn't see it. I don't know.
I'm getting paranoid now. I'm gonna lose my mind by the end of this show.
You edit the video, so if you can't have a Mike Pence moment without you having published it yourself. you know?
Right, but what am I gonna do? Like CG, like
no,
or
just
like
put like a blur, like put up like, you know, as if like you're being interviewed and you don't want your face to be shown or something, you know?
right?
Just blur your face the entire episode.
So anyway, yeah. So what do you guys think as far as fanboys go?
Yeah, Chris, hit me with your thoughts on this.
Well, I'll just dispute the claim that everybody has their favorite sports team that they bleed for.
Sure.
I don't even know. Like, I like the Yankees, I guess, because I'm from New York, but that doesn't even really. That's just because I've seen Seinfeld and I know who Keith Hernandez is. Like, I don't.
Keith Hernandez played for the Mets, so.
Well, even there you go. Exactly. There you go. That's my knowledge of. That's the same shit, honestly, to me. But yeah, like I just think about. To me, like, it is just kind of a definitions game where we are kind of at this point where, you know, there's a difference between being like a really big, really interested in something and going to bat for it even when it's just blatantly obvious that you're in the wrong. And I think that's really kind of the separation of what we're trying to talk about here. Like, and it depends on what side of that you consider fanboy to be on. You know, I would say that it's totally fine to be like a huge fan of something, to really appreciate something, to really enamor yourself in the iconography of something, or enamor yourself in the world of something. I'm a huge Halo fan. I'm never more than like 4 feet away from something related to that series, right? But I'm also like super critical of it, and I'm super skeptical of it, and I'm super, you know, I just want, and that's partially because I want the best for it, because I appreciate it so much. And I'm the same way with a lot of the game systems that I've grown up and that I've grown up around and that I've used throughout my time. Like the PS1's my favorite console of all time. I love the PS1, you know? But is the PS1 better than a PS5? No. Like, obviously not, you know? And there's like basic value propositions, and there's objective reality that we kind of need to pay attention to. And it's like, if you're a PlayStation fan and you really, really love the ecosystem and you love the culture there's nothing wrong with that. But then when Sony does something that is, you know, arguably not consumer friendly, I think you should be allowed to call that out. In fact, I think you have an even higher obligation to, because you supposedly care about the brand and how well it's received and you know how well it does. I think it's almost an onus on you, if you're a fanboy, to really take these things to task even more than like a normal person would.
Right. Yeah, I think it's very well said. You know, I'm a huge sports fan. I like I said, I have my teams. It's a little different though, Dan, too, because part of being a fan of sports teams is hoping for the best, but also each team kind of has their own feel, right? Like part of being a Jets fan is being real fatalistic, for instance. Like that's part of what it is. It's fatalism. We're always going to lose. This team sucks. Like that's part of being a fan of the Jets. That's part of how you grow up as a Jets fan. It's fun. Like it sucks that we lose, but it's like that's part of what it is. And every team kind of has their own genetic makeup in that way. And so with PlayStation, I'm a huge PlayStation fan, but yeah, I agree. I think it's very well said. Like the onus is on you to kind of hold them to account. And I do that. That's why when people call me a PlayStation fanboy, I just ignore them, because I'm like, there's no way you listen to me if you think that. Like if you think that I'm like one of those, then you do not listen to what I say. So you're just here to try to hurt me or something. So Dan, thank you for writing in and for your support on Patreon. We appreciate you. Glad to have you here. Kate O'Brien wrote into us and said, hello, gentlemen. Does it seem like Sony is leaving Returnal out to die? The game's combat looks great and Housemarque is a phenomenal developer. However, it seems the majority of the conversation around the game is that it's a roguelike and has a $70 price tag. Does Sony need to do a better job when it comes to marketing its exclusive games? Dustin, what do you think about this? Because I agree. It seems like when Returnal comes up, unfortunately, most people are talking about how expensive it is. The unfortunate thing, and Chris and I have talked about this in the past, is that it's really too late for them to take the price back, because it reduces and removes the whole value proposition of the game to begin with if they don't believe that it's worth it. So they are committed, that they have to be committed to that price tag. They did get Destruction All-Stars down to 20 or whatever, but they first had to make it free in order to even get that to be acceptable. So what do you make of the whole of Returnal's shot? I think, by the way, I do want to point out, I think Returnal has a pretty good shot of being bigger than people think, because there's nothing else to play. People are going to buy it. So what do you think?
I think that this is what we said last week. I think the shot in the arm that this game needs is a 20-minute rundown of, or even, they don't even do anything extensive. Like, oftentimes they'll go to someone like IGN and they'll be like, here's 20 minutes of Returnal gameplay. We just need to see what the moment to moment of this game is, because what we've seen, like that trailer they showed in State of Play, I thought looked pretty compelling. But again, I still don't know really how this game is structured at all. So I think the hesitancy isn't from the fact that the game looks bad. It's because it's the unknowns about the game still. So I think if they just start to fill in some of those gaps, they can instill some confidence in the people that might be interested in it, people like me. So I don't know. Sony marketing and PR will continue, has been a mystery and will continue to be one.
Yeah. Well, what do you think, Chris, specifically about the price tag, the value proposition? It's always what you see first. And I understand people's hesitance, but I don't want to try to sell this game. I love Housemarque. I don't want to try to sell people on Returnal, but I feel like a game can be worth, and like, just because it's a roguelike doesn't mean that it's not worth $70. But I understand. If I were a consumer that didn't have a bent for Housemarque, I would be waiting to see if this was any good, you know?
No, yeah, of course. I think, I do think 70 is a bit steep, only because, you know, this is Housemarque, and they're a really good developer, and they're known for a very specific style. And this game does have like some remnants of that style too, even if it is in a very different space. But I think the fact that it is in a different space, and the fact that a lot of people are probably, like, let's say like you have a casual person who is just interested enough in the industry to kind of look things up, but not super knowledgeable about, like, you know, the history and like all this other thing. They're going to maybe see, oh, Housemarque, what have they made? And then they'll look back and they'll see like all these 2D games, and like maybe they haven't played them, and you know, maybe it's just like, oh, that's interesting. They're probably going to be at least a little skeptical that this thing is going to be up to snuff, especially when you're comparing. You know, I think it's also a victim of just being kind of lumped in with the Sony first party as well. Like, we're coming off of like Ghost of Tsushima and like Last of Us, and then we're going to get Ratchet and Clank soon, and then people are expecting God of War as well. And then you just see kind of this roguelike game that doesn't seem to look all that different. Like, even the gameplay that we've seen, like, I've never seen one screenshot of Returnal that looks particularly different from another one, you know? Like, it is very, not samey, because I don't know if that's necessarily the right word, but not necessarily super fluctuating in its aesthetic or its style, and that gives the impression that the game is really not that big, and maybe there's not much to it. So I think if I don't know if like a $60 price tag would have been better. I think it might have. I do think it's going to get a shot in the arm regardless of the fact that it's a PS4, it's a PS5 exclusive, and you know, there's not much else to play. I do think that's going well for it, but I do think this discourse is probably more damaging to the reputation of the game than its placement in a PlayStation store, not surrounded by anything. I think it has a potential to do more damage than the positivity that its placement in the store will do.
We'll see.
We'll see.
I keep reiterating, we still don't really have any first-party games on PlayStation 5, so we're continuing to get, which is, with the exception of Miles Morales, which just isn't a PS5 exclusive. So, I don't know. We'll find out.
This is another thing.
I'm really wishing for the best for this one. What did you say?
No, I hope so too. But I'm also, like, I wouldn't be surprised if there are a lot of people who don't even realize that this is a Sony exclusive. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. If I saw this trailer, I just wouldn't assume that. So we gotta see. We gotta wait and see. But I would expect, honestly, I would expect this game to come to PC eventually.
Yeah, I would assume so too. It's only 7 weeks away. I mean, so we'll find out soon enough. Walter Boley wrote into us and said, "Greetings, Sacred Symbols. I'm writing in to follow up on something Colin said last episode when discussing Days Gone's Metacritic score of 71. When the score came up, Colin, you pretty emphatically said, quote, that game is not a 71, end quote, implying by your tone that you think it deserves higher. This confused me. Why do you think that, Colin? Do you think the critics whose reviews make up Metacritic were lying about their experience? I've heard you speak on Metacritic scores this way before, though I can't remember the specific examples. In my opinion, it's perfectly okay to really enjoy a game that other people didn't. I find myself in that position frequently. Nothing wrong with treating a 7 like a 10. Thanks, dudes. I hope you're staying healthy. Thank you, Walter. There are multiple reasons why I wanted to bring that up. I feel like, first of all, I don't really give a shit about scores. But Days Gone is an example I've hit over and over again, is an example that Sony really hurt. The game is not a 71. It's not. I'm sorry. It's not a 71. It has that score because of how bad it was. See, what I'm saying is that it's literally not a 71. It's not even a figurative thing, right? It's literally not a 71 because of the how people reviewed the game. So if their lowest baseline was a 71 average, then it's not a 71. And that was Sony's fault. Coincidentally, when I started pointing that out, it's when Sony PR stopped talking to us because they really screwed that game up. And so, no, I hear you. But my other problem with Metacritic, and this was the thing we experienced at IGN, and people might not know this, is that Metacritic is not an even division of, review score by number of reviews. That's not it at all.
Some reviewers
IGN has a way higher
priority.
weight. Exactly. Like IGN scores count like many times. So if you have like 10 scores, you're actually dividing by like 25 because IGN counts like 10, and then like the little sites might not even count once. So that's and Metacritic's formula is totally secret. So no one even knows how it works. Like you have to try to reverse engineer the numbers to even see, and people have done it, to try to figure out like what everyone's weights are. They won't tell you what your weight is, that they don't acknowledge the different weights and all of that. So that's my major problem with Metacritic. I don't want to get too hung up on it, but so no, I don't think anyone's lying about their experience. I just think that the game Days Gone is a very specific example of a game's Metacritic score not reflecting the product now. I know Chris doesn't like the game. It might be a 71 or even lower to him. That's fine.
I think it's about accurate for me, my personal experience with it. But there's more people who like it, so like, I don't know. It's whatever.
All right. I won't hang up on that one too much. Nat Patterson wrote into us though and said, "Hi CDC. Is it time to cancel my PS5 pre-order? I'm in Australia and my pre-order is with EB Games, their GameStop. You have to remember, Nat, just so people know, EB and GameStop were once separate companies in the United States, but GameStop bought EB, so they're the same company here too. I call up every few weeks to check when I could reasonably expect it to arrive, and they keep telling me you're in the next batch. Well, shipments come and go, and my console still hasn't arrived. I find myself becoming less and less excited about it, and from the sound of things, maybe I'm not really missing much at this stage. So if you were in my position, would you take the money, a cool $500 deposit, and run, or just keep perpetually waiting for the nebulous arrival date? To me, I don't feel like, why wouldn't you try to do both? I mean, if you really want a PS5 and you can get your money back, which you say here, I mean, you say, would you take the money and run, or would you perpetually wait? Why can't you do both things? In other words, keep the pre-order and then actively try to get a PS5 elsewhere and then cancel it if you need to. I mean, that seems to be the most logical conclusion to me. Dustin, what do you think?
Yeah, I would hate to see him take his pre-order out and then something get announced or a shadow drop, something happens that he regrets it. It's not, unless you're like, feed my family and take the pre-order money out or something, unless you're like really in desperate need of that $500, just keep it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, you think so too, Chris?
Yeah. Yeah, there's no reason. If you're like on a list at that point, like you might as well just keep your placement on a list, because like redoing that is going to put you even further behind, and it's a kind of a crapshoot right now anyway. So I would just keep them, like Dustin said, unless you're unless you're trying to decide whether or not you want to still live in your place, by the end of the month. Like I would say, you might as well just keep the pre-order.
I agree. I feel like, so this, I just want a little parable, as it were. I'm a pretty nice person in my everyday life. I think I have this reputation online of being like someone I'm really not. I'm a really nice, kind, patient person with people. And I've learned owning a house that I've been way too nice with people and way too patient with people. And so I wanted to bring that up to Nat too, just because like if shipments are coming and going and your console's not arriving and everything, you got to push back. Like, they're clearly getting PS5s. I mean, it's ridiculous to assume that they just are not getting any consoles and that they can't find anything for you. So maybe push back a little bit. And I bring that up just because I had a problem with my fence installed last summer. They put part of the fence in the wrong place, which is their fault. And I was so nice to them for so long where I was like, can you guys just come fix it? And like, when can you come do it? And can we work things out? And eventually they were just ignoring me. And I emailed them literally yesterday. And I'm like, listen, this is fucking nonsense. And you need to come fix the fucking fence now. And lo and behold, they're coming on Monday after literally months of just being nice every few weeks and be like, hey, do you have an update for me? Thank you for your time. You know, so sometimes you got to kind of drop the shoulder a little bit. Yeah, niceness
doesn't beget results a lot of the time.
It's unfortunate because I don't do business like that, you know?
Yeah, no, it sucks because it sucks to feel like you have to be a dick. But like sometimes you really... There's a reason why a lot of shit gets done in New York, you know?
Yeah, I mean, we're of that place. And I feel like... it happened to me over and over again where I almost feel like I'm getting taken advantage of just because I'm the nice guy. It's the same thing with my house. Like with the builders coming back to fix things and stuff, I think I'm just a pushover in that regard. And sometimes and it's because I really have such an aversion to conflict. You know, I really do. I have a total aversion to conflict in my real life because people want to fuck with me so much on the line that in my real life, I'm like, please just leave me alone. You know, just do whatever you want. All right. Daxter Days wrote in and said, hey, gentlemen. Any advice on HDMI cord optimization? My TV only has 3 ports and one is taken up for the soundbar, another for the PS4. So if I want to play Xbox One, Switch, or PS3, I have to get up and change the cord. Not a major issue, just a minor inconvenience at best. Any fun tips would help. Thanks, boys. So I find this problem too, although I know that they have switchers and stuff that you can plug into. That's another box or another dongle that's hanging off your TV, and it's just that's not a solution for me. That doesn't vibe with my OCD. So I have 3 ports as well, and one's for my PS5, one's for my PS4, and one is like the cable box, which is also the Xbox, which is also the Switch, and that gets changed around. Chris, do you have any... Daxter wants fun tips for HDMI cord optimization. Do you have any fun tips for him? I know you have one fun tip for him, but do you have any fun tips for him?
Listen, there are no fun ways to optimize cables. Cable management is quite honestly the most infuriatingly dull and tedious thing about like having a lot of like electronics or a lot of equipment. It's the worst shit. Because it's all ugly. Like it's just all hideous. Like there's no way you're gonna get it looking good. Even when you got like the PVC tubing or whatever the hell. Mm-hmm. Like it just looks like this hideous tube that's like. It's all bad. Like I'm sorry, man. There's no way around it. I would suggest command strips and a switcher, like an HDMI switcher. Like I would so instead of it hanging off your TV, you can like do the adhesive strips and like maybe adhere it to the back of your TV so that way it's not like dangling and that's what I did in when I had my other TV, which had like 2 HDMI ports and I had to swap between shit constantly. Another thing is just maybe consider, you know, what do you use most often? And maybe like, you know, just prioritize your cable management around that. Like I know I barely play my Switch, but I especially barely play it on the TV. Like I always play it handheld. So for that, I never have the HDMI hooked up. I just sort of have the dock where I can charge it and then I take it up and I go. And that way I have a free HDMI but it's also important to remember that these new machines, especially, require HDMI. What is it? HDMI 2.1 to really take advantage of like the majority of features, and maybe some splitters might not really translate that well. It's a bitch, but I would say maybe like in the same way that like I have a USB thing for my laptop that doesn't. Like because I don't have enough USBs on my laptop, so I have this extra thing. They got the command strip too. Yeah,
shout out to command strips, by the way.
They're great.
Yeah, they're awesome. Yeah.
They're probably the most useful that I have experienced in the last like 20 years.
Yeah, that clicking sound.
It's perfect.
It's quite satisfying. I gotta say.
I have my capture card back in LA, like on the wall, and it's beautiful. It looks perfect. But Perfect. I would suggest getting like maybe a splitter of some kind or like a hub that adds more HDMIs, because that is ultimately like the simplest solution. And just command strip it to the back, and that's a good way to manage clutter.
It's pretty thorough. Right. Dustin, you have any additions?
No, I'm with Chris. The only thing, and Chris touched on this, is that you got to be careful. I wouldn't spend too much money on a switcher, just because if you bought there are people that bought expensive switchers or sound systems when 4K came out, and they're already having to upgrade because of HDMI 2.1. So the thing about like this scenario, like I was trying to figure out a way that I could do a wiring system to have my computer connect to my TV downstairs, and it was so complicated and annoying. I just bought another TV for my upstairs office. So
yeah, sometimes that's what it's dude, what I'm experiencing now with my cables, first of all, my TV looks in my living room looks awesome front on because everything's buried in the wall. But when you're coming down the stairs and you see the side of the TV, it's nuts. It looks like a battlefield. It's completely insane. But what I'm unpacking and getting everything, I've been, as we noted earlier, very slowly. And I have so many cables that I don't even know what to do with them. But I'm afraid of throwing any of them out. And I love throwing stuff out. As people know, I love throwing things out. I love getting rid of shit. I love not having a lot of stuff. But then I'm like, I have 25 HDMI cables. Might as well keep them all. So I don't know what I'm going to do with all this, especially because most of them are probably not 2.1, so they're useless. And I don't know. I got to figure all this shit out.
No, I guarantee you the overwhelming majority of them are not 2.1. And that's kind of the thing. It's like, but they're still useful. Like in a bind, like if you're ever in a, like, that's the thing. It's like, I have the same problem where I throw everything away. Like I'll throw like shit away that like I'll throw pennies away, and that's money, like I'll literally throw money away. But I have, one of the things that I packed my car with when I shipped my car out here was I had a bin full of wires that I was like, I don't know what any of this is, but I know I'm probably going to need at least one of these at some point. And I'll dig through it and it'll be like a fucking mess. But I know I'm going to need that HDMI cable or that USB mini or micro, whatever the hell. USB mini?
That's the new one, right? Is that the micro is the second one. Mini is the first one, right? That's the PS3 one. Micro is the PS4 and Vita one, and then the new one is 3.0.
But there's these weird things that you have that are still useful that use like USB mini, and it's like, where the fuck do I have that? Oh yeah, in that bin of wires, like the Elgato, like my capture card uses that. Uses HDMI,
the PS3 Move
USB mini.
That's the fucking Move controllers use that.
Yeah,
which they're still forcing us to use. And you need that for PSVR. Yeah. Currently. Yeah, it's it's pretty crazy. Man. It's very interesting. Well, Daxter, we're wishing you the best. By the way, he was talking about chord management with a CH. He kept writing it CHORD. Oh, which I appreciate. And I was thinking that would be an awesome band name, Chord Management.
Chord Management.
Like a really nerdy math rock band or something like that,
Right.
Yeah.
Zach Higginson has the final inquiry. He says, hey guys, what are your thoughts on PSN constantly having sales? Sometimes multiple sales simultaneously. I feel like I'm constantly grabbing a game for $9.99 that I thought looked interesting a few years ago. It seems like we are in new territory for the amount of competition games are going to have for attention and dollars, with PS4 content transferring over to this gen. Do you think new releases are going to struggle a bit once we get further into this generation? Thanks for all the great content. Zach, I kind of want to back up and just talk about, if I might, the idea of sales, because I am noticing that PSN is constantly having sales. Hundreds of games as of the time we're recording this are on sale right now. And it is becoming very Steam-like, where I think they realize people just buy games on Steam because they're cheap. They're not going to play any of them, and at some point, I fell down that rabbit hole too. And it really started with PS4 because PS3 didn't do that. So PS4 was the one that was really like, here's a game for $3. Remember the Division 2 was $2 for a while, stuff like that. So, Dustin, what do you think about the constant sales? My problem with it is the downside of buying something and then finding out it's on sale later, but that's kind of just the cost of doing business. What do you think?
Yeah, it's like you said, let the people spend money on games they won't play, because we've all done it. Every single one of us. I've gotten a lot better at it, Colin, like you mentioned. Like I was obsessed with Steam sales at one point. This was before PlayStation did, and I have so many games I never played, and so I've gotten good at it. But there is something to be said about, if you're constantly putting games on sale, are there people that are going to refuse to buy a game because they know it will go on sale regularly? That's me. Right. If I see a game that's older, that's even like, if I see a game that's a year old and it's not on sale, if it says $59.99, I'm like, no fucking way am I buying that full price. It will eventually go on sale. I'll wait. So it is an interesting, they got to weigh out the options.
And it's Chris, it's what we always say, right, about Nintendo is that the one major advantage they have, and perhaps why they sell so many games actually, is because they don't drop their prices ever. So people don't get scared of going and buying Smash Brothers because it is literally never going to drop in price. So
yeah.
What do you think that there's a value in that? Maybe even in the first party. Could you imagine a scene where Sony was like, all of our first party games were always $60? They're never going to be cheaper, because that's what Nintendo does, and they get away with it. So
I think that's fine. I think the only issue is that they have a history of not doing that.
So
and
now
that's
you
kind
can't
of the
start.
thing. It's
right.
Like,
that's a great point. Right.
It's the second you have a history, because I remember when Xbox Live came out, right? And it was, you had to pay for it. And when I was a kid, I was like, I don't have money. That sucks. But also, like, I get it. Yeah. You pay for cable, I guess, right? That's how I thought about it. It's like, yeah, you pay for it. And on PlayStation, that was like unacceptable. When the PS3 was out, it's like, I can't believe you pay for online. But then Sony did it. And then, there were some people who were like the fanboys who were just like, oh, now it's okay. Suddenly it's okay. But then there were people who were just like, it's like, because they had a history of not doing that, it was less okay, because it was almost like kind of going against their own kind of philosophy, or it was hypocritical, or whatever the hell you want to call it. So I think Sony and Microsoft both would have a hard time kind of establishing this new kind of cost strategy, as opposed to Nintendo, which has just always done it. But I do think there's probably like a ton of value in just making sure that your games are always premium price. Like I think Call of Duty did that for a long time. Like I remember trying to buy an old Call of Duty game, because I was just curious about it, and it was still like $50 or something. I was like, what? This is 2 generations ago, and it was still expensive. I couldn't believe it. But as far as like the PlayStation sales go, like they don't bother me. I've done the same thing with like Steam sales, and I've just like bought shit. Like I bought, and this was when I think after the new Tomb Raiders came out, like after the new first Tomb Raider, I think it was just called Tomb Raider, right?
Yeah. Tomb Raider, yep. The reboot.
After that came out, all the Tomb Raider games went on sale, and you could get all of them. Every single Tomb Raider game, the original 3, the anniversaries, the PS2 games, and the PS4 new reboot title. I got those all for $7. I was like,
yeah, that's
of course.
Absurd.
Like, why would I don't even really care for Tomb Raider that much, but like, that's so many games for $7 that I can't possibly justify not buying this. And lo and behold, I've played 3 of them. Like 3 out of the, I don't even know how many there were in that bundled, like 10.
I think it's funny, Chris, because there is this notion. I don't know who said it to me. It might have been someone at IGN once. It was quite sage, which was, you're not saving any money if you're buying games that you weren't going to buy anyway. Like, if the game is $5 and you weren't going to buy it, and now you bought it for $5 and you're never going to play it, you just lost $5. It's very logical when you hear it said out loud, but people don't think like that.
Well, there's an argument to be made that like maybe when you're like when you're old and retired, and like you're in your little retirement home, and then you lug your PC, you lug your
old PC,
yeah, and suddenly you've just like the world's your oyster now, because you managed to spend $7. But then by then it's like those games would be free anyway.
That's true, and I'm also quite cynical about it too, just because I feel like with those examples, like with Tomb Raider, right? Or when The Division they were trying to promote DLC. But a lot of that is also to push units so that they can raise their sales numbers. Not their finances, but to say, like, we sold 1 million copies of this. Well, it's like, how many of that million were sold at full price? And how many did you just sell for half price? And that's part of the game too. And we're realizing that with our games now that they're finally going on sale for the first time, like, we can't really differentiate even what's selling for what, so at some point you lose track of it, and then you have to like divide. Then it's I don't even know what I'm allowed to talk about. All right, that's it. That's all we have for this show. This episode of the Sacred Symbols podcast. Hope you had fun. Mm-hmm. I sure did, and we appreciate your love, kindness, and support of our show and everything we do over on Last Stand Media's Patreon, patreon.com/laststandmedia. Buy merch, including Sacred Symbols merch. Most popular piece of merch, Sacred Symbols sweatshirt, over at laststandmedia.shop. Thank you so much for the meteoric success of that. We know we made you wait for a long time, and we really appreciate it. And again, all made in America, all fairly made by people that are being paid a fair wage. All of that kind of stuff's important to us. So thank you for understanding that as well. We don't want Chinese slave labor creating our shirts if possible.
Yeah.
What else? I guess that's it. Oh, Chris, how's your I meant to ask you, how's the figure going? The toy, the U2s.
It's going good.
Good.
Yeah, it's going good.
Send me one for the shelf back here. Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta get. I have a shipment of a bunch of them that are coming in. I think they're coming to the LA place though, so I have to have my roommates send them over here. But yeah, I'll have a bunch to sign and like send out to friends and family soon.
Cool. That's exciting. All right. Yeah. Dustin, you have any final thoughts before we let you go?
No, other than thanks everybody for the merch, as you said, like really, really strong numbers. So we really, really do appreciate that. And yeah, thanks for having me on again. Oh fuck, Chris, what are you doing here?
Is that a hostess?
It's a donut.
Oh hell yeah. That's what
I haven't had these
about.
in so long. And I saw them at the supermarket, and I was like, "Oh my god,
I love hostess.
They're so good."
Yeah, they are.
I mean,
they come in the bag, right? Yeah,
it's like they're shitty, but they're amazing at the same time. It's like this weird duality. The duality of the Hostess powdered donut.
I love Hostess donuts. Hostess is just a wonderful brand. Generally.
Yes. God bless him.
Yeah. Oh, I'm absolutely
not like that fucking cosmic brownie garbage.
Or tasty
you ever had
cake.
Those? You ever had the cosmic brownies?
Repugnant. I want to look this up real quick.
You've never had a cosmic brownie?
I think I have. Let me see. Cosmic
They're
brownie.
just the most repugnant chocolate that you've ever had.
Yeah, this is Little Debbie. I know what this is. Yeah.
I hate that brownie so much.
Yeah, this isn't my thing either, because I don't mind fudge, but I don't often go for brownies, so I don't know. I don't even know what the fuck we're talking about. It's time to go.
Let's go.
Thank you so much for your love, kindness, and support of our show. We'll see you next time for more Sacred Symbols and, of course, Sacred Symbols Plus on Patreon. Until then, goodbye.
See ya.
Take care, guys.
Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Collins Last Stand LLC, and is recorded from Central Virginia and Burbank, California, USA. The show is conceived by, is written by, and is produced by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-host is Chris Raygun Maldonado. Sacred Symbols' executive producer is Dustin Furman, and the show is edited by associate producer Ben Smith. All of Last Stand's theme music is by Ramon Narvaez. As you know, all of Last Stand Media's shows, including Sacred Symbols, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer support level or higher on Patreon, and we're grateful for your kindness and generosity.